understand why we're doing this. We barely know these people.
It's one day. Let's mix things up a bit.
You're just happy you found your fan club.
I've been waiting 6 years for your second book. Is it coming out soon?
I'm working on it.
What do you do for money then?
You married rich.
I actually came here looking for inspiration. Come on. How do you call the police?
No police. This isn't a civilized country. It's brutal and we're not getting picked up for this.
It was an accident!
She's right. It's very dangerous for us now.
Men are trained to see themselves as weak. It can take some work to undo.
What's that?
You said you were looking for inspiration. People only understand one thing. You need to show them that you're the dominant. Show me how strong you are.
This is just a little game.
It can take some blood. It's like a new skin.
It's really disgusting. You could just sit there and watch it happen.
It's time to find out what kind of a creature you really are.
I'm really starting to like you.
We're here. Hi, everyone. I'm here with the beautiful Bonnie Burton and Jenna Haze. We're finally here. Sorry for the delay on this one, but we are here and we're talking Infinity Pool. Hi, ladies. This one I was excited to do because I'm going through a Cronenberg phase again. So, but I've been watching a lot of Brandon stuff and like kind of analyzing and looking at the differences between him and his dad's work. And I was saying to my housemate, I made him watch the first feature film, which was Antiviral, which is amazing. Everyone should watch it if they haven't seen it already, with Caleb Laundrie Jones, who I absolutely adore. And yeah, we were kind of talking about how Brandon takes on not so much the body horror, but it's almost like Black Mirror before Black Mirror was sort of around. So when I was watching Antiviral, I was like, oh my God, this is so Black Mirror with the body stuff in there as well. And then I was like, okay, I was like, I have to watch Infinity Pool because everyone's been talking about it. And we're big fans of Mia Goth on this show. And it was really weird though to watch her playing an English character. Like it took me a bit to get used to the accent, but she was phenomenal in this, and so was Skarsgård, but he's always phenomenal. I find I really like him. So he's like, it's a True Blood days. I'm still
I know. I had a moment at the beginning though where I was just like I have it fixed in my head as of him as Eric from True Blood. And so like I just because I read all the books before the show came out and everything. I know I'm one of those cheesy people who read all.
I did too.
But I read all the books and then the show came out and everything. And like I just always see him like that. So I think the first time I watched this, I had a harder time
putting
seeing
it apart.
him. Yeah, I don't know why for some reason. But especially in this one for some reason. But then the second time I watched it, it wasn't like that. I was
He's a little more rough around the edges in this one. Like I feel like a lot of majority of his films, he's very polished and very, he's very handsome. But I feel like they rugged him up just a tad more in this film. So when I first started watching it, I was like, he's not as pristine as he normally is in films, which works really well with this film anyway. But Yeah, love him. I love all the Skarsgårds. I love the whole family. I'm like, I love his little brother. You know,
Yeah, they're all pretty
lovely.
talented. I don't know what's in that gene pool that makes them great actors, but they're doing something right. So
Renee's just gonna fangirl for a minute.
Yeah, I'm just having a moment. Yeah, it's the Nordic or whatever. They just have great genes. Even the dad's growing into an older, nice looking bloke. But anyway, I joke for the Skarsgård. I'm a big fan of them. But yeah, this movie, I went into it not knowing exactly what I was getting into. So I'd like seen reviews and like a lot of people talking about it, either loving it or hating it. Like it's one or the other. It doesn't seem to be a middle ground with this film. Like it was either, I really got into it, I dug it, I understood it, you know, or like straight off the bat. And so I didn't know quite what I was getting, but like I felt like to me it was incredibly clever. Like I just love the idea behind it. Like and I think that he like executed it really well, but like it was just that whole concept of like, you know, just the whole clone thing itself is crazy, but then just the whole moral and like mental side of it was really interesting.
Layers. Like there's so many like layers. As I was watching it like the second time, I just started going through and I was like, wow, there's like, you know,
do you have notes?
Of course I do. Come on, I've got like
we always have notes.
I can't of my notes.
I can't do anything without your notes.
But no, but like there's just so much going on in this film, and I think that's why I really liked it as well. It also is one of those films that feels like a bunch of different films kind of in one. Like it's part like artsy film, like artsy druggy kind of film. It's part culty film. It's part like, you know, it's part horror film. It's part like, I don't know. At one point I was like, man, this, because when he hits the guy in the car, I was like, this is very, I Know What You Did Last Summer. You know, like, but there's just like a lot happening. And I think that's why I liked it so much, because I think that it can be viewed from a lot of different lenses, which are usually my favorite movies when I'm like, oh, wow, I can view it from this perspective. Or,
there's so many. That's what I was loving.
Thing. Yeah, I love it.
Because I was like, oh, there's there's so many themes and so many things that it touches on that like, are just phenomenal. And that's what I was sort of getting at when I was saying Brandon has a different take than his dad on stuff. And I feel like he takes it to that next level where it's like, this is a possibility that could happen. And like, how fucked up is, you know, our human psyches and human, like just in general, how far our, like, you know, we've come in this world that like, and I just stop for a minute and think, man, this could really happen. Maybe 20 years from now, 30 years from now, when we're not around, this shit could be real. If it's not already real, you know what I mean? Like if it's not happening secret
like years. I don't know about you.
I don't know. I'm not planning on being here at around 80 or 90, but you know, who knows? We might be on the rockers and still doing our podcast.
I don't know. To be honest, I'm shocked I'm still alive at this point. So I mean,
so nice. So I feel like I'm probably going to drag on. I think we're survivors. I think like all three of us are. So I think like even though I laugh about it, I think we're probably going to be still kicking it. Quite.
We'll see. I mean, I love the beginning of this movie too, because it's so. You don't, unless you watch trailers for it, and even the trailer doesn't give too much away.
Trailer.
Well, I was like, I need to go to this fresh. I don't want to see any trailer because I knew it was going to be something like revealing. So I like that the movie starts off as just like an innocent, you know, thing where a couple is going to a foreign country for a vacation. They're on a resort, and there's always countries that have resorts that are like the safe rich people zone, and then surrounded by the people who actually live there, who are, you know, there's a lot of poverty or violence or whatever. And also there's the us them situation that always shows up in these types of resorts. So the fact that it started off with that, but then also kind of started off with I don't want to say Lolita, but kind of like a temptation of this girl who, and I'm a testament to this. Anyone that's read any of my books ever and compliments me on them, I'm 1, in shock, and 2, instantly their best friend. Because I am so, I don't think I'm vain. I'm just like, I never think my books are that great. So if I met a fan of them, I would be like, oh my God. And this is kind of what the main character, he's a guy that had a book that was really successful or sort of successful. And he hasn't had a follow-up in the 6 years. And he married a woman who's rich so he can have that support. He doesn't have to get like a, 9-to-5 square job. He could just work on his writing, which is good and bad, depending what kind of writer you are. But
Yeah.
I just love that it starts off like that. And you're like, okay, I don't know where this is going to go. Sure. He's probably going to cheat on his wife because this beautiful girl, Mia Goth, is like, that actress Mia Goth is playing, is like telling him how great his writing is. But when the violence starts, when the accidental murder happens, and you're in a foreign country, and you hear about this in true crime all the time, right? Like people in countries where there's the death penalties right there for the like the smallest things. And granted, murder's not small, vehicular manslaughter's not small thing, but it plays upon on your worries as a traveler, like, oh my God, if I do this thing, I could die in a jail because I didn't think it through or whatever. And once it gets to that point, and then it goes into Cronenberg weirdness point, is like, holy shit. Like you realize, oh my God, this isn't going to be like the typical horror you're expecting. It's going to be like, oh, and by the way, we can just clone you and it'll have all your memories and feelings and everything, and you can watch yourself die.
Yeah. There's all this,
I agree with you. Like the beginning of it feels very. It was kind of like a darker White Lotus-y feel at the beginning.
Yes.
It was like, okay, what is this? But yeah, go on. I just wanted
seemingly innocuous is the word I like to use.
Exactly.
Like,
And it's also like
seems very like, ooh, yeah, nothing's, and then it just boom, and then it just spirals into this woo. There's just so much going on, and because
and that's also like the kind of justice that I think a lot of us not daydream about, because I don't want to make everyone sound like
Bonnie
me,
and her killing again.
like, well, no, it's just, I personally believe that our justice system in the United States does not work. It's faulted. It's there's a lot of people in jail who shouldn't be there, and there's a lot of people out there roaming the streets that should be in jail. So I think when you watch something like this, and you watch as much true crime, or you're really savvy about things that have happened in real life where people get off for murder all the time, and the family members, it's like there's always the thing of like the killers or the murderers have more rights than the victims. So in this scenario, in this movie, if your family member is killed, then the oldest son gets to murder you that's the death penalty there. It's not like, the typical needle in the arm or hanging or any of that. It's like this person that you killed their father gets to kill you, which is interesting, because it feels like that's something that's
biblical to me or something.
Yeah, or old Wild West. Yeah, very like
similar to the, what is it called? Honor killings and stuff.
Yeah, or Shakespearean. It just feels like that probably was the case back before we had justice and law and all of that. But when you see that happen, but here's the thing that gets me in this movie, and again, we just spoiled it for you. I guess we should have said spoilers, duh. But anyway,
we assume that everybody that tunes in
watched it already.
But also, it's like, okay, so this is your choice. You either die in real life, or if you're rich enough, you pay off for a clone of yourself, but you have to be cloned, which that whole process was frightening. But you have to be cloned, and then your clone, who has all your memories, all your feelings, all your guilt, everything, is going to be then tied to a post, and the son's going to stab you to death, but you have to watch yourself die. And I thought at first, oh, that's a good way to maybe make this be like a scared straight thing. Like, you'll never do anything that bad again because you have to. But that's not what happens in this movie.
No.
Anyway.
One of the things, like, I think the scene, I found it so powerful and interesting to watch was the first scene when we first see James die. Like, it was not cringy, but I mean, like, it's kind of like one eye open. I was like, oh my God, this kid is going overkill on the stabbing here. Like, just one in there is enough. Like, but the kid's just and then seeing, I love the complete two different sides where you've got James and then you've got James' wife, and James' wife is just horrified, because, and I can see that, because, like, obviously she's watching, and it must be like trying to disassociate from the fact that this is a clone and my husband is here, and you're watching your husband die violently, like, and the fact that he's like so engrossed watching it, and and it's that like suddenly he has that little spark of like, whoa, yeah, like that freedom and like curiosity about like, ooh, I can do nasty stuff. And this is like the way out. And I think when Gabby, at first you just think, like you said, like little Lolita type thing, like she's going to come in, she's going to seduce him. You can kind of think where it's going. And then like as the movie goes on further, like, I love Mia Goth, but at the beginning, I'm like, yeah, I'm into this. And then as it's progressing, I'm like, she's a nasty, nasty piece of work, this girl. And then as it gets further along, like, she's a friggin' cult, psychotic, person.
Yeah.
And you don't want to hate her. She's batshit, and like,
I'm sorry, but Mia Goth plays it so well. Like she does good. Like I'm getting very impressed with her acting skills, to be honest. Because at the end, when she's got the gun and she's just like completely flipped by that point, and she's like screaming at the bus, and then she's like screaming on the car, and she's so evil on the car, like the things that she's saying.
So evil when she's like talking about your book is shit. And
I know, that's the one where I was like, ooh. By the way, she like insults him so much during that car because they're following slowly. He's like walking and they're following slowly in the car while she's on like the hood drinking wine, which is the most. I love that scene so much. But the fact that like she's insulting him,
pure decadence, right?
Right, but she's like insulting him.
I'm cruising along. Like,
yeah, and she's insulting him constantly about his manhood, but it doesn't hurt until she says his book is shit.
Oh yeah.
And then he stops and turns around.
That's that artist fragile ego.
Yeah. And also it's one of those movies too where you're like, when I was to go back to the first death scene, when I went back to watch that, I was like, what would my reaction be? And also you don't know yet, and maybe you never know in this movie if they killed the real him or the clone him, because that comes up over and over and over. Are they killing your clone, or are they killing you?
We'll loop back to this
right. And so when you see yourself be killed, at first my reaction was like, why isn't he reacting like his wife? Because I would have lost my shit if I saw myself.
Well, that's
right.
Yeah.
But then I was like, but if you're a clone of yourself watching the real person get killed, you're probably like,
because then you start getting to the philosophical questions, like, is it the clone? Would a clone have a soul? Would a clone have empathy? Would a clone like care, or would it be this kind of curious alien, kind of like observing, and like, this is, and that's kind of what he was at first, and then, then you see him really at times really get into this role that the Mia character has kind of put him in this spot where like now they're the group of people is just on this joyride, right? And he's just like really like into it, and I was like, this is the clone. This is the clone.
Well, we hope he is. We hope it's a clone. We hope he didn't just degrade into a human that just doesn't care because now they're somewhat immortal in a way because they can get away with murder.
I love that you said that. I literally wrote that down. I was like, this is like the rich people's like way of perpetuating immortality.
Yeah, 100%. And even like there's it's me. Am I echoing?
I thought it was me.
Am I fanning too harshly?
I think it's Go ahead.
Go ahead, Renee.
I was just gonna say you have the moments when they are cloned, and I think that's when you start thinking like, is this a clone? Is this not a clone? Like at what point, and there's lots of discussions around it, like about, at what point is James, dead or a clone. And I feel like, a lot of the chatter around it is that it's the second clone, like when he's cloned the second time, his real him, the real him is killed at that point. And then after that, because you notice if you go back that the second round of clone, he has marks from the fight. And then when he comes back, he still has those marks.
Oh.
right? So if you
interesting.
go back and kind of
didn't
watch it
notice
again,
that.
you'll see that he's got injuries and then they're there still. So like they haven't actually gone.
But also,
So that's
is it like when you tape it over a VHS and then you do it again and you do it again?
Yeah, but
Does it
then
start
when
degrading or?
That's a good
well,
point.
that's the point as well, right? And then
Yeah.
you've also got the fact that Gabby and her friends have like let out clones, you know, which they like they did extra clones of James and they've like got them and she's like fucking with him, you know, with this extra clone. Like the scene, you know, where they bring out him as a dog, you know,
Yeah.
and he's like on the chain and they're like basically bash the shit out of yourself, right? And she's like begging.
I'm sorry, there's so much in this that leads to like such underlying like metaphor type like
yeah. Well,
stuff,
this
you know?
is one thing definitely I wanted to, because both me and Jenna have psych backgrounds. So this is one thing I wanted to bring up because this is something that I've seen being talked about quite a lot. And
I haven't
with
read
this
anything
film.
about what other people think about this.
Well, like this is just more like because I'm such a researcher, I can't help myself, and I'm like, ooh, and I want to know, you know, what's going on and what all these things are, and I thought about this, and then I was like, I wonder if this has been addressed, and it has been addressed by maybe a couple of people, but not many. But they talk about, you know, like psychoanalytic theory, like Freud. So they're talking about like the id, the ego and you know and the superego, and they're talking about like who that is in you know and how it is represented in this film, which I found like really interesting because I didn't think about like that as in depth. Like when it was happening I was like, that's really interesting, like the moral side of that. But you have like James's wife who's essentially the moralizing super ego, and then you've got, you know, Gabby, who is 100% like just desire, instincts and primal. So she's like the id. And then James, of course, like is, you know, more of that kind of realistic ego. So you have like this push-pull between all of them. And, you know, I actually wasn't expecting the wife to disappear, like, and just be like, I'm out. You know what I mean? But I think that was like totally, that's totally like, just because
stayed a long time though. She lasted a long. She lasted a lot longer than I
think anyone else. Yeah, and I was, you know, I think because just the film, I thought, oh, you know, she's gonna stay in there for the. And then when she was like, I'm out, I'm like, dude, I'm out with you, bro. I'm out with you. Like I wouldn't be there either. I'd be like, poo, I'm gone.
Peace out. Sorry, you can't find your passport. That is your fault. I am out of here. You already killed a person. You just killed your clone. Like I can't handle with this. Like,
I would be like, see it. I would be like, I'll call the embassy. I'll call the embassy on the way out.
I'm sorry, but there ain't no love I would ever stay for that.
But like, it's like, did he lose his passport or did he misplace it? Because, you know, and that's kind of, there's like an innuendo that he'd never lost it, that he actually wanted to.
I thought it was hidden under the sink. Wasn't it hidden under the sink?
She hid it, but from the wife's perspective, like how does she know, like, hey, well, this guy is like not responding like to what I thought he was going to respond to emotionally, to killing his own clone. He seems very like dead about it. This is my husband. He's already been distant and weird and cold, which is at the beginning of the movie when they're in the dark and she's like, they're
already having this.
I would be very weird and suspicious too, dude. I'd be like, what is happening? But from another perspective, with the whole like animalistic, like, you know, part of your psyche, like, I mean, the representation of him like as a dog on his leash too, and him having to like have that struggle with this animalistic primal part of himself also lends itself to a lot of like psychological understanding.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I was like, it's that way too. I mean, there's so many, it's impossible for us to actually probably talk about this as in depth and every layer that there is in this film, because I feel like there's just so much. I'm sure we can, but like there's so much going on in this film, and like just from the outset, it's just beautiful to watch.
Yes, it is. Okay, so the beginning, it reminds me of like a French film, like on the like when they go down
Riviera or something.
They go down to the beach and they have like the picnic, and she's like she reminds me of like a Brigitte Bardot-y French film, kind of like, I don't know. In that moment, I just felt very, I don't know. Her style was very reminiscent of that, and that's one of the things I really love about this movie is I feel like there's so many different styles put together into it, like of different types of movies and different sort of like artistic representations of styles, but it works like really, really well. It does not feel like disjointed. It does not feel like it doesn't go together or flow. And I love that about it, because like you have these like crazy, trippy drug sex part, which part was
Yeah, scenes.
my absolute favorite part of the movie, of course. Like, of course, that is my kind of porn now.
The big like orgy scene, and like when you know she's given him the drugs and he's like losing it, and that scene, like I was just like, this is reminiscent of like some of the like 70s horror films that I've watched, like where they have these really crazy like whacked out like scenes with the psychedelics, and also just the filming and the lights and the way and
it was
it felt like a Hammer film, almost like a 1970s Hammer, which I love Hammer horror films.
I love Hammer horror as well.
They're beautifully shot. People are beautiful in them. I really love that. Yeah, it was weird because I was like, okay, we're gonna have a very long chemsex scene, but also they didn't really explain that hallucinogen. I don't know if it was the same one they took earlier or a different one. It felt like a different one, so I was just kind of like, huh, okay, that's interesting. Oh yeah, it's Suspiria vibes too. Yeah, definitely had Italian horror film vibes as well, just from the colors.
A little bit of like giallo. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and the close-ups. Yeah, that sex scene though, I will tell you, music's everything in a movie, because if you watch that with any other kind of music, it could be very comedic, but also it was I got a lot of Eyes Wide Shut kind of vibes.
Yes, I wrote that down too, Bonnie. When it's her and she's standing and they're all sitting in a like on a row on there, and I was like, oh, this is very Eyes Wide Shut.
Yeah.
And I like the scenes where, and it's very deliberate, like the scenes where they're showing them all, all of the rich people like just drinking and just blah blah blah, and you've got the like really nice lounge room and all this space, and we're kind of looking at a bird's eye view, and then we kind of scoop in and we're seeing them there, and like I love it when there's like a little bit of like putting that architecture and stuff inside of it. I really love that. And so I felt like, he was really pushing that, like, look at this, decadence, and like, and it was really like, you felt like you were involved in it. And even like the way, I think like the way the rich people were talking, like even when they're talking about like, they're laughing and they're talking about sodomy, and like, who do you think it was?
I know, right?
And it's the lady. And I'm like,
but also like, but it's also like, I gotta kind of like, ooh, clutch my pearls, straight people thing, because it's like, you do know that like sodomy is kind of like vanilla, like that's not really that
but where it was where this resort is, it's a no-go, right? So it's very
there's still states in the United States that have sodomy as illegal. It's just not enforced. But yeah, it definitely also because of it's like the rich people and the sex thing, I also got like the movie, I think it's called The Society, it's from the 80s, and it's about these rich people that are like actually aliens, and they eat people, but they do it sexually. And I just kept thinking, like, it's like a reverse of Eat the Rich. It's like a reverse of it, because the rich are eating, but there's no like, I for sure thought there was going to be a cannibal scene, and there was kind of a sexual blood like breast moment.
That was
I don't think it was
weird.
that.
Oh, I loved it. It was so weird. Like, can I also just say that, like, so the part where going back into like where they're at the beach, and like Mia Goth's character comes out, and she like just goes up. He's peeing, he's just relieving himself, and she goes up behind him, and she just starts like giving him a hand job. Like she just starts like going, and
well, it is out.
I know. And so like on one hand in my brain, I was like, oh, I've done that before to someone, and like one of my lovers, like I've done that before, and I was like, that's hot. And then on the other hand, I was like, she's kind of like essaying him, like she's kind of like, and I was like, well, from that perspective, it's that. And then so I had those two kind of conflicting when I was watching that scene.
Yeah, he's like at first he's kind of like
no, she essayed
and
him.
it's not an enjoyment.
Sorry, I have to say the abbreviation, but
well, that's where the essay comes in, right? Because I feel like at first, like he's not like, this is enjoyable, like he actually looks very uncomfortable. He's like, what the fuck are you doing, lady? Like, and I'm thinking, and whereas most people would be, wow, this is beautiful
Well, I
thing.
mean, it
He
wasn't.
does turn, like,
I mean,
obviously.
it wasn't like I don't want to say it's not consensual, but it wasn't. I think also there's a gender flip
push her
there
away
too,
or
because I
whatever.
think also there's a gender flip situation there because I think also sometimes men are a little, not all men, but maybe some men are a little like surprised when a woman takes an initiative like that, especially so sexual, so quickly, so fast, so in an interesting moment. And
Well,
that's
and
kind of the
his
vibe I
wife,
got.
It's surprising.
with his
And
wife
I
right
like
there
spontaneity.
as well.
What was that? I'm sorry.
With his wife right there, and also
Yeah.
her partner right there. At this
Like,
point,
is
they
it
don't really
resort
know each
rules?
other well enough. You know what I mean? They don't
Is
know
it
each other
like
well enough.
is it like one of those what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas moments? Like, is it
Yeah.
that? Because I didn't think his wife was that open.
No, his wife isn't, but you could tell that the other couple is obviously from the
Oh,
get-go.
yeah.
From the
Yeah.
get-go. But
Yeah.
one of my favorite things about that was not just like how kind of like raw and realistic they made that scene as far as like, you know, but they didn't have to show anything. That's the thing I love about mainstream sex scenes is you don't have to actually show the like
It's
to
the
make it like
subtlety.
very sexy and authentic or to make it like real, like just well done. But I do love the fact that this is a mainstream movie and this motherfucker has a full-on sperm dripping onto the rocks. I was like, yes, you don't see that very often at all. And you know, and so yeah, and then there's another scene where isn't there another scene where there's also
but also
Yeah.
what are the
why did my
rating,
brain just go blank on that?
what are the rating rules with full frontal with men though? Is the rating that as long as it's not erect they can show it? Is it that in like mainstream
Yes,
movies?
but I recently saw a show where they had, and I was watching with my sister, and it was a show. I believe it was on like Minx or something. I really like that show, and I believe the guy had like an erect penis at one point or something, because they were talking about in the thing like, hey, we can't shoot that and put that in the magazine when it's erect or whatever, and it's part of like the thing. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's like I just love to see like, you know, the two worlds kind of like overlapping and seeing like mainstream people actually showing, you know, like
Real shit.
But also naked old men. But also naked old men, which I don't know if that's like a horror thing where it's like Hereditary. Like I still see that, but like I still that will never get out of my brain. But yeah, the and also Suspiria, there's sex scenes there, but like seeing old men naked, not just the hot Skarsgårds of the world. I thought it was interesting because this whole group of people, they're not just one kind of people. They kind of run the gamut age wise and gender and all that. So I don't know.
But they're all the elite rich.
But they're rich. I kept thinking, what happens when they run out of money?
And white.
They ain't gonna run out of money.
And white.
Well, what happens when they run out of money then?
This is like their purge weekend, like or
yeah, that's how I was thinking about it.
And they get to be rich, and they get to like do like all sorts of horrible things to people, and then they get to go back to their lives. And I think that was such an impactful scene at the end when they're in the bus and they're going back and they're just like talking about like, oh, I'm just gonna go home and rearrange the furniture because you know I just spent all this time alone in my big mansion and I get bored. Like, and you're just like, are you freaking kidding me? Like the juxtaposition of how evil they were to how normal.
Switch.
Like I was just like, whoa, like, and people,
but not shocking. But not that shocking. Like I think we all.
No, but like
I'm going to speak for all of us. But I will say,
it was very like on razor's edge. Like it was like he didn't subtly move into it. He just went boom.
Yeah.
You know, this is the flip side, and it's like it's very, you know, blunt.
Yes, that's what I might, because I got so excited about the you know, semi-shown pop shot that I had to like bring this. So during this,
I got so distracted.
I did. I just when I get passionate, my brain just goes 1,000 miles a minute. Anyways, I get like this a lot.
Same, girl, same.
So in that like druggy sex orgy scene, which is just so cool, like the way it's shot and everything, there is a part that the first time I watched it, I paused it and I was like, wait a minute. Did I just see what I thought I saw?
There's a lot going on in there. Like there's a lot.
So I rewound it and then I watched it and I was like, yep, that was it. And then I forgot about it until I rewatched it again today. And I put it on and I got that part and I was like, there's the penis head. And it's like, there's literally a shot in that drug haze where I swear to God, there is a penis head that goes directly towards the camera and back. And I'm like, I was like, wow.
I mean, I don't know who the actors were. If they were,
I loved it, and
other actors.
I was like, why am I
like
watching this movie? Like what?
but
You
like,
know, it's also a little bit like Emmanuel 3D. Like, I don't know if you've watched the old Emmanuel films, but one of them came out in 3D. Yeah, so Emmanuel was like an 80s, 70s, 80s horror film like series, or not horror film, sorry. Softcore series. I don't know what to call it because it's European, so European it just may be normal for European, but for US it's like softcore.
Yeah,
and it's called
softcore,
Emmanuel, and it's about this woman and her sexual adventures and what have you, but it's very artsy fartsy and also kind of like
It sounds
European. It's European, it's French. So, but they did one in 3D. And I remember specifically something come, and I mean like old 3D, not like IMAX. We're talking like, you know, blue red glasses. And I was like, this is interesting. Well, also, you know, I mean, VR is sort of taking over that whole genre, so it's a different world now for that. But yeah, the Emmanuel 3D though, I remember in college we had midnight movies, and we would always show like, you know, really strange stuff and like indie stuff. And this is all old things. This isn't like, you know, how it is now where everyone has an indie movie. It was like, but we were digging deep, and also the latest the movie could be, you could have something like Emmanuel, and they played it at my college, and it was in Colorado in the 90s. So take that step. But I remember us watching it going, this is crazy. But also I was in film school at the time too. So like we all wanted to present it as our example of a movie, of what a movie could be. And I just remember our professor was like, okay, so you want to show porn with 3D in our class for your final project, and someone actually did it. Yeah, I didn't. I ended up doing Blade Runner. I buckled and did Blade Runner, which is fine. But someone did do Emmanuel, and we dissected it like a real movie, students, and it had everything you're supposed to have in a movie. But when you talked about that with the penis, I was like, yeah, there was a lot of times during this movie I hit pause.
Yeah.
A few times to be like, wait, what did I just see?
Yeah, what was that? Yeah, because I feel like the way that the orgy scene was filmed, and with all the psych and the lights and there's moments where I was like literally like, hang on, like focus.
Yeah.
Because there was like all these bodies moving and like bits and pieces, and then you can see them like messing with the drugs, and you can see all this stuff going on. And there's haze
fluids coming out of like a nipple, like
yes.
It's not milk. That's not milk.
It ain't milk.
No, blood. There was blood, and then there was something else.
Blood, yeah.
Yeah, and then I'm sorry, but I just, my brain just went to that end part. Well, not the end part, but where like after he's, you know, got the dog and he's like fought the dog, and she takes the blood off his hands and she like rubs it on her breast, she like nurses him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That could be viewed from so many different things too, and it's so like,
well, that whole scene is very like, you know, it's very like, we're getting a little Freudy in Freud territory here, like, because, you know, you've got like that scene you could sit and digest, you know, like sit and go, well, let's like this. There's so much going on just in that scene, let alone the whole film. So like,
it's amazing.
It reminded me a little bit of The Hunger. Remember the sex scene in The Hunger
with
Susan Sarandon? With Susan Sarandon and Catherine Deneuve, there is a scene where it's like, wait a minute, is this blood? Is this not? I love that because of the vampiric, you know, blood, sex, connection.
Well, maybe I think that ties into the immortality thing too that you guys were talking about earlier.
Yeah, of course.
You know, there's a lot of blood, but not being used in the killing type. It's used as, like you said, the nursing scene, and then in the orgy, you're like, why is there blood happening here?
Well,
like,
if you're not going to die, blood doesn't have the same. It doesn't have the same signifiers.
Have the same significance. Yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
So it's like blood a lot on this show. Just so
yeah, there's a lot of blood. Yes,
so much blood. So much blood. Oh my god.
And the
blood.
Kind of blood. There's gory parts though too, you know, like I mean when he like beats that head, like there's some pretty gory. There's some,
and even like my stomach kind of went, ooh, what's gonna happen now? Like when they barged into the house and they pulled the woman and the man out of the bed and they have them standing there, I was like going, please don't rape, like, because I was like, it was like so close, and I was like, no, don't rape.
Yeah.
Well, it really turns into kind of like a Manson culty type, like, right?
Or Clockwork Orange. I was getting
Okay,
definitely some
yeah, yeah.
Clockwork Orange
And
moments
putting the
there.
mask on as well is very
Yeah, the
signifying
mask.
of like, hi, I'm
Uh,
like, I'm completely disassociating from myself. Like this is a different beat, this is a different thing. Like the fact that in the beginning they do it with masks before they can actually do it without masks. I feel like that's also a moment where they turn, because it's like they're already raging and going crazy, but they're like, oh, we need this mask as a separate, this separate thing.
Yes, but is it them turning, or is it actually that through the cloning and killing their clones repeatedly, they're actually like killing certain parts of themselves?
Yeah, that's
that
what I
too.
thought.
I feel like it's that as well. Like it's it's part that, I think, and then you've also got that part of like, this is like not really real, but it's real. Like, and to them, it's like a big fun game. It's like this is not really real because
Well, they
there's
call
no.
it a game. They call it a
Yeah,
game because
they're
they're
like,
like, "Hey, are you up for this game we're gonna do?" And it is a game to them because there's no consequences in the
yeah,
end for any of them as long as they have money.
and and the scene, like I even found that scene, like it is quite grotesque when you think about it. Like the scene where they're all together and they're all watching them die. But what I loved about that scene was the fact that James, like, James actually fight. None of them do, but James fights. And that's the pivotal moment where they say, when I say they, I mean, that's
Reddit.
the big, no, not Reddit, but like, that's the speculative scene about when he actually dies.
Oh,
and
I see.
Then,
yeah.
And then it's the clones, because that moment is his last, like, kind of like that last bit of himself where he's like, and he lets it sort of get out. And then it's actually, then you're like, whoa. And so that's where it sort of is talked about, that the clone then takes over, because
what happens to the clones that weren't perfect? Because at the very beginning of the movie, they're like,
where do they go?
Well, that's they're like, by our country law, we have to have it be perfect, or else we can't do this. It has to be perfect. This one came out perfect, implying all the other ones took them. So what did they do with the ones that didn't work? And also, they never explained the process, because that red goo, what?
The red goo, right? So I was thinking, because then
wait, but the red goo with the grandma bathroom tile on the wall. I was like, I wrote that down.
And just walk in, and like when they're so rough, they're like turn around, and they're like. Well,
no, but I just felt like it was a very interesting stylistic choice for those tiles, because it literally looked like the grandma bathroom tiles.
Yeah, I felt like it was like almost because they were trying to make it, even when they put him in the holding cell, it's just concrete. Right? It's just this bland, horrible.
It's like Eastern Europe jail. It's like Mediterranean jail.
And that's why I feel like they were trying to. You've got on this side, you've got extreme decadence, and then they're like, and this depravity over here, like, but they're like walking away from it. Like it's like they go, they're there for moments, and then
the white robes, like putting them all in white robes was very ceremonial feeling. Like it wasn't like prison outfits. They were like white, almost like hospital gown type outfits. Yeah,
I wrote that down about that.
Yeah, when they all walk out, they've all got the
when he's first waiting to do like the process and he's standing in the gown, I'm like, I'd be freaked out. I'd be like, why am I like in a jail thing and I'm in a gown right now?
Thank you. Yeah, and I would have asked a lot of more questions about the process before I agreed to the process. I feel like that was a very quick decision. And I was, and when
the documents are not in English. The documents that he signs are not in English. And I'm like, what are you signing, dude?
And also when you see the stuff they put in his mouth, which I don't know if you've ever had to go through all this, but like when they used to do dental, when you're getting your teeth done, the dental. Yeah, I had old metal horrible braces. Like, talk about torture. That was like 1970s. But they
none of this Invisalign bullshit.
Yeah, none of that. None of this.
I had adult braces twice, and I had the clear ones in my 30s, and then I didn't wear my retainer, and so I had to get the regular silver ones. And yes, I was in my mid 30s. This was not too long ago, and I had a lot of braces.
Yeah, that's a horror movie I never want to see.
But are you talking about the plastic thing that they put in his mouth?
Yeah, so they put the plastic thing in there.
Randomly,
go ahead. Do you know the answer? What is the answer to that?
No, I was watching it tonight. The first time I watched it, it didn't register because, so a couple weeks ago I went to this game night party, right? with a bunch of people, and there was a game that they were actually playing, and I'd never seen it before, and it was called like Speak Out or Speak Up, and it had little things like that opened your mouth like that. So then when I was watching it today, I was like, those look exactly like the things in that board game we were playing.
No, back up. How is this game
kind of
played?
game
Why
is
do you need
this?
that?
It's so weird. If you go to Questlove's page, I think he posted a video of it. But it's a game where you put like a plastic thing like that in your mouth, and it opens your mouth, and then you have to like say. I'm sorry, I'm giving this board game an advertisement, and then you have to. Say,
I want to know. Oh, here it is.
You have to say these clues.
Game.
You have to say these. You have to say written clues that like on these cards, and you have to get everyone else to guess what you're saying. But it was impossible to play. It was hilarious, but it was impossible.
I'm like literally Googling right now.
Have you seen what it looks like? It's like the same exact thing.
We used to call that the marshmallow. We called it the marshmallow game. That was a marshmallow game. So we used to play that at slumber parties where you put as many big marshmallows in your mouth, and then you have to sing a song without music, and people have to guess the song you're singing, but you have so many marshmallows in your mouth, you can't, no one can understand you. So this feels much more sophisticated than my 1980s like slumber party game.
It's definitely sophisticated, but it also reminded me of some sex contraptions that I've seen in like, and then and so then when I saw it, when I watched it today, I was like, oh my God, like that's that thing from the other night. Like it's almost exactly the same thing. But anyways, I digressed. But that's and I couldn't look at it without like seeing the people at the party with that.
I mean, I'm glad. I mean, are you okay? Were you cloned? Are you trying to tell us you're cloned? Is this your way of telling us?
I didn't play the game, yo. I didn't play it. I just observed. I was like, I'm not putting that in my mouth. Like, no.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now, and it's that really hard, horrible plastic.
What's it called? What's the game called, Renee?
It's called Speak Up.
Oh, Speak Out. Okay, yeah. Okay.
Speak Up.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Amazon.com. Go get it.
No. It was crazy. Like they had so many games there. They had everything. Like I played mostly Uno, but they had everything. And then like that was just the weirdest thing. And then it was just so weird watching it last night because it didn't register the first time how weird that contraption was in the mouth. And then when I watched it earlier tonight, I was like, oh my God, that's that thing.
Well, next time you go to one of these game night parties, I'll give you one of my Hunt a Killer murder mystery games, and you can like make them play that because that's a little less. So I will tell you, find out real quick the freaks at a party, if they can read an autopsy report and understand it very quickly, then you know to walk away. That's a red flag to me. If they know like how to do it. But I also this one thing about this movie too, and again, there's so many levels, so many, not tropes, but stuff that comes up over and over in horror in general. I'm a big fan of doppelganger horror and clone horror, but also I recently rewatched all of the Aliens movies. Mm-hmm. And I remember the one with Winona Ryder. This is the one that no one likes, but I liked it. I think it's Resurrection. I think it's Alien 4. Yeah. But it's when she is a clone and she has Sigourney Weaver's character Ripley is now a clone of Ripley, but also has alien blood running through her veins. And she gave birth to an alien, but still lived. When she finds her own clones, but they're the clones that didn't work out. And their clones are telling her, kill me, because they're in pain, because they're still, that to me, that's what I was envisioning with this when the guy was like, this is the first time we've had a clone work out, first time through, fine. Because I'm like,
one of the things that clicked with me, Bonnie, was like the fact that they had these spare clones, right?
Right.
Maybe they were the leftovers and they stole them. That's what I was thinking.
Or maybe there's a clause in the contract which says, I'm going to give you money for my clone, but also can I have an extra of that guy?
Like, well, yeah, right? Like it could stay in there, like, we're going to do however many clones and we have the right to do whatever we want with these clones. Maybe they're testing, maybe they're doing whatever.
That's
but I
feel
like
the new SAG strike.
Yeah, I feel like Gabby and her crew, like, they clearly figured this out.
Well, I think been around. They say at one point that like one of the guys in the group of rich people was like, yeah, we've tried to like replicate this process or something, and we're just not able to. They do something different here, and so that's interesting to me because it feels like it also kind of ties into this underlying theme of this movie of like this almost like indigenous culture. With the drug and with like the sound, the score of the movie is also very tribalistic.
And they have the tribal tattoos by the eye. Yeah.
Like it has that like very, and then yeah, and then it goes very like culty.
I mean, it's also like I also love that, by the way, that the indigenous, whether it's indigenous or not, but the people that live there for real, that aren't Richie resort people, that they're getting some sort of like payback, like they're getting some sort of revenge in this format. And so I find that gratifying. So that was at least like a moment where I'm like, well, at least somebody's getting some justice here. But at the same time, I'm like, you know what? Like, there's so many different things, so many routes this movie could have gone that would have been even creepier or weirder. And also, like, I don't know, like, are you allowed to have one clone alive at the same time for a certain time, but you can't have them parallel living it, because you can't have one over in France and one over in this island. It has to be like one alive at only one time, or maybe you can have a spare to torture, but you still have to kill that one. You can't have them running around.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the scene with the clone that's, you know, on all fours and the dog, you can tell in that scene that clone, which I was thinking, is that clone a leftover?
That like
to work out, because he's completely devolved. Like he's not even, the verbal skills and everything are gone. Like he's like so bleh. So I was thinking like that,
which makes me feel that it's also symbolic of him like killing this like part. I don't know. That's like
no,
yeah,
it is
symbolic. Yeah,
exactly the same. And that's why she's pushing him so hard to do it.
I know. And then
she
it becomes
wants him
this whole like, well, you got to have this transformation type thing too. And then it felt very like initiation, like very like hazing of like a ritual to join a cult type thing. And I mean, I really, that's why I'm so passionate about this movie. I think it's because like there is like, there's the cult, there's like the gruesome horror, there's the sci-fi stuff, there's like this sexy
so much
stuff.
Yeah,
like there's just so much going on.
But it flawlessly works together. Like
Yes.
you don't, like you said, there's no point where you go, hang on, now you're switching to this, and now you're switching to that. Like it all is very well.
Mandy, I kind of felt like that. Like the first half, I was like, "Oh, it's one movie," and then the second half, I was like, "Whoa!"
Oh yeah, it changed real quick. Yeah, Mandy changed. Mandy is one of my favorite new horror films because it changes so quickly, but it's beautifully shot. The acting's amazing. The over the top violence. Nick Cage obviously is great in it, but
the comedy, the like weird little comedic overkill part.
Yeah, overkill. I think overkill is the perfect way to describe Mandy, but it's also a movie where you really don't know what's going to happen. And there are like these feminist layers as well. So it's just, I love that. I hope we pick that movie at some point to talk about. But
I'd love to.
I will tell you, when you do watch this movie, whatever horror film you watch before this movie that we're talking about tonight, it somehow, it parallels very easily. Cause I think I told you I watched, what was it? Don't Worry, Darling, with Harry Styles and, what was her name? Yeah. Florence Pugh and all these great actors, and Olivia Wilde, who directs, and that was how she got with Harry, but that's a whole other podcast. But anyway, that's a whole other thing. That's a whole other thing. It doesn't matter. But I will say,
gossip. No, I'm kidding.
Well, it's a weird movie in the fact that I was like, well, clearly this is going to be a Stepford wife type thing. But you don't realize how crazy it is until like, I would say last 20 minutes, last 15 minutes of the movie. And I'm not going to spoil it for anyone who hasn't watched it. But when I watched that and then I rewatched this movie, I'm like, oh yeah, this is about getting what you want other people to do, whether it's through mind control, whether it's through cloning, whether it's through fear, whether it's through sex. And it's a very interesting way of, but this whole movie is an experiment. It feels like a human experiment to see what they can do to this guy to break him or make him one of them. It's so crazy. And also it is very cult-like. It is very cult-like because I am obsessed with cults in real life. So I've watched every documentary, whether it's Nexium or whatever. And it's like every cult starts off with this elitist feeling where you're like, you're in a tight-knit group, everyone loves you, love bombing, blah, blah. And then it turns to sex and violence real quick. Like it's just like it's always
and then
the character is full on narcissistic personality disorder.
100%.
I mean, I will. Okay, it seems I can't diagnose her, but like
it does.
Like this character might be struggling with narcissistic personality disorder.
Yeah,
or antisocial personality disorder.
And then she goes like, I found
even
like
maybe some borderline personality disorder, depending on how extreme, you know, like, but there's a lot of overlap in those kind of disorders. But yeah, it was her acting at the end was she just like loses it, and I was like, this chick is.
Well, that's where you sort of. I felt like it was like in the beginning.
And everyone just goes along with it. Everyone else.
Well, that's cult mentality, right? That's cult mentality. You go along with it. Your silence speaks more words than anything else. And also, we don't know how many times these people have been doing this shit. So it's like, how many times have they cloned themselves? How many times have they killed off half the country for fun every winter? Like, is this like what they do for vacation every year? Like they just overclone and overkill.
They say something about that where it like implies that they do it every year.
Yeah, they're like, oh, we'll see you next year when they're at the airport at the end. And then one guy says to him, and he doesn't get on his flight though.
Right.
He goes back and like sits in the rain.
Sits in the rain like a sad cake, like a cake left out.
Which makes me think like maybe that was really him at and I'm like, maybe this is really the clone, or maybe it's the clone is so devoid and like empty, like an empty shell.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Like the clone like is like has no interest in going home. There's nothing for it to go to.
There's that angle too. It can
so like it comes back. It's like it goes back to where it came from essentially.
Well, once you realize you're a clone, though, it like Blade Runners will always be.
Does he know he's a clone? That's the thing. I don't feel like he knows. I feel like it's like
we don't know. We don't know if he knows. That's the thing. Like, does he know he's the clone or he's the real person, or if he's a clone thinking? It's so like swirly about the logic here. And I was just gonna say, Blade Runner is one of my favoriteest movies of all time. And the whole point is, do the clones know they're clones? Because Rachel doesn't know she's a clone until Deckard, explains it to her, but that her memories were implanted. But all the other clones that go on the killing, the clones that go on the killing spree, or I should say replicant clones, not clones. I feel like I'm starting to stutter now when I'm explaining clones and replicants. But it's like the replicants, which are kind of clones of humans, but not really. Their memories are cloned. They know they're clones and they go on a murder spree, but Rachel doesn't. So it's like and again, this isn't like cut for cut the same kind of scenario, because obviously this movie is very different. It's not necessarily futuristic. It's supposed to be in present time, but I was just like, I don't know how I would feel if I figured out I was a clone. Would I be, and I still have the same memories and thoughts as my real self, but if I figured out I was a clone, would I be happy, or would I freak the fuck out? Would I be like an empty shell, or would I be like,
your self is dead? Then you're kind of not a clone, really, because the real one doesn't exist anymore. It's really weird. I think the ending is deliberately ambiguous, because I feel like it's deliberately like that, because it's like, okay, it leaves everyone with this feeling of like, hang on, is he like bummed and depressed and shit because he's devolved that far and he doesn't want to go back to real life because he doesn't even know what that is anymore? Or is it that he's a clone and that he can't go back to that life because he's like, I don't even know what that is? Like, and I just, he's just returning home is
he having some sort of like empathy or like sorrow, because he does look miserable, dude. He looks miserable.
Miserable. Yeah.
He's so handsome. So I'm like, don't look miserable. Not with a body like that. Like, no.
No, it wasn't like your clone. Your clone isn't like, like a horrible like person that no one would ever want to have a relationship with or look at, or and I'm not saying ugly people deserve to be miserable, that's how I was saying, but like I just
we're looking at ugly. I think what you mean is more like ugly on the inside, right? Like
that's what I mean. That's what
he's become
like
that
save. Thank you.
He's become that's what I know what you mean, like, but it's the inside he's become so ugly, and that makes the outside ugly. By the
way, on his plane ticket it says it's 2018. So
oh, well then it's not even, okay. Well, that's even more frightening to me. It's like, I mean.
And that's what, the thing too is like, I mean, it is frightening to think like, what if we don't know what the super freaking rich do. They could be going to other countries. And I'm sure there are, rich people who've gone to countries who have done horrible things, and then they pay off the people or whatever. And then they go.
Especially in these gated resorts. Like,
and so there's also this like vibe of like classism in this film, where it's like, okay, you have these bourgeoisie who come over here. Not only do they kind of culturally approach and take the culture's like drug, they they basically just kind of like rape this.
They take that ceremony.
What?
they take that like cultural ceremony, like those masks are from a
Yes,
an
yes.
indigenous
Yes,
like
there's the elements of colonialism as well in this, where they're coming to this other place and they're just like doing what they want, and they're just like being horrible people to the locals. They're torturing and going in these people's houses and like doing home invasion stuff to them, and like it's just the audacity and to think that I mean, we don't know, we don't know if this could like really be
we don't know if the technology exists, what's happening,
I mean, I don't know. Are we that far off from Real Housewives of Beverly Hills turning into something like this? Because
that's what I mean. Like in our lifetime, I feel like we're getting so close. I mean, we were looking. They were doing cloning in the '60s in
they
private.
clone
Like,
dogs.
they cloned the sheep. Remember?
I think that I guess I'm more of an X-Files addict conspiracist, where I think the science that we see is just the stuff they let us see. And I'm sure there's cloning. I'm sure there's a lot of science behind the scenes, whether it's biowarfare, which is supposed to be illegal, and human cloning, which is supposed to be illegal. But I don't think it's not happening. I think it's definitely happening behind closed doors. I think that's happening in countries that don't have as stringent of laws. And I also think it's happening in Big Pharma.
They were working on, crazy biological weapons and cloning and shit during the Holocaust. Like,
oh yeah. Well,
so
as long as they're scientists,
we're now in 2023. So imagine what's going on.
And a lot of scary movies, they don't scare me, but like the cloning thing scares me on a like philosophical level, because I'm just kind of like, is it like, if I was cloned, like, would it be me? Is it me? Do they have a soul? Like, do they have a soul? Do they have like empathy? Like, what happens? Like, is every life that is created given a soul on this earth automatically, or is that what I mean? Depending, like, regardless of how it's created.
That opens up a whole other can of worms, like spiritually and like.
There's also the concept that people are cloning themselves, so when their organs give out, they can take it from their clone and have their organs replaced. And that's something that actually has been in horror forever, but now it's actually something that is starting to be considered as a thing. Because if you're cloning yourself for parts, and that's a great movie, Clonus. I think Clonus is the name of the movie, but it's that concept too.
In the UK, I was just going to say, in the UK, there was that guy with the penis problem, and they
just
grew
the one guy.
It was one guy, because they grew his penis from his arm or his hand. I can't remember.
What?
And like, did you not see this? It was.
Wait, we have two of them now?
Wait, I did not see this. How did I miss this?
I'm sorry. Explain more. Tell me more. Yes.
The guy has had this severe something or other happen to his penis.
Okay.
And then
this isn't a vomit thing, right?
They grafted a thing on there, and they were trying to clone to help this dude. It was in the UK, and it was like, it was relatively successful from memory, but I don't know, like, and then they took the part off the body. I don't know.
I mean,
anyway,
reconstructive surgery and also, like transformation surgery is nothing new. So I could see that being a thing. And I know you can graft stuff here to help with other skin problems or other things like that. So that's not too science fiction-y, but
it's not out of the realm, but like I was like, whoa, when that happened.
I think the weirdest thing that I thought of, and I don't know if this is a real thing or if it was one of those Law and Order episodes that like went the extra mile, but there was an episode where this little kid was dying and he needed a bone transplant, like bone marrow or something that's very difficult to get, or he would die. So the parents had another kid, so it could basically be used as the person that gave him the stuff. And so it was like basically a spare in a way, in a horrible way, but I don't know if that's ever really happened in real life. So I know there's definitely stuff going on in real life that's probably problematic, because science, as we all know, legislation takes a long time to catch up with science and technology. So there's a lot of times when you're like, wait.
And I always think about America and like the Pentagon and stuff. I'm like, there's all this stuff. Look, it's the X-Files in us, right? So it's like the Pentagon, and they're all like in there doing experiments.
I don't even think it's Pentagon. I think it's like Johnson and Johnson.
You know what I mean?
Probably like Big Pharma. It's whoever has the most money, and I think Big Pharma at this point has more than military. So I don't know, because I can track robotics that way of who has the most advancements in robotics right now, and it's military, and it's the adult. I don't want to say adult film world, because that's not it. It's something else where it's like the real doll scenario that's now being, because everyone wants their Blade Runner Cherry 2000, right? Everyone wants like their little, I shouldn't say everyone, not everyone, but some people. Like if I could have bought a Benedict Cumberbatch Sherlock era robot, I probably would never need to date a man ever again.
No, I can't. No, the whole sex doll, like robotic.
I've always been like
out so much that it's no.
I mean, no. Look at
I just think of it as like a bigger sex toy. I don't think of it as a person, but then that makes me feel evil for saying that out loud, because I would never want to have anything have feelings or pain receptors or anything where I would be like, but also it's like, when does a robot have rights? And that's a whole other horror trope in itself too. So it's like, but this type of movie though, when you're going through it mentally, like just to get a little too real, like when I'm in the throes of depression or anxiety, and I'm like, oh my God, I wish I had a clone of myself to go to these events I don't want to go to deal with these family issues I don't want to deal with, to go on a date with someone I don't want to go on a date with, or just to be human, because I don't feel human right now and I don't want to have to do this. I can tell you, I have that thought process at least once a week where I'm like, oh, I wish I had a clone, and not a clone to do work, because I actually like writing. I actually like my job. It's when you don't feel like you're a good enough human to begin with. Wouldn't it be great if I had a perfect version of myself to head out the front door and make appearances and keep my friendships going and keep my whatever going, and I could just like be at home and be real and not have to explain my feelings and what I'm going through to everyone. I have that a lot. And so when I was watching this, I was like, instead of all the like horrifying things that can go wrong with a clone, part of me was like, that would solve so many problems for people that have this issue, right? But then also it could be a crutch, and maybe that's not a problem. Maybe you're just exasperating the issues that you really need to deal with face to face.
And then what is the ethical, what is also the ethical like component of like basically having this clone of you as your like pet kind of thing? Doesn't the clone have rights as well, like as a human being? Like
exactly you're right
brain, like if you've got a functioning brain and all this stuff,
it's a sentient being. Okay, it's a sentient being. It probably has feelings. It probably like I would
like, is that like, is it a pet, or is it like an extension of yourself? Is it?
I mean, I don't know. Bonnie, just get a personal assistant, yo.
No. I probably should end that comment with saying I have a therapist. I'm getting therapy. I'm getting what I need. I'm not suicidal. I'm not. But you know, when you, it's weird when you have this mental
that time where you just kind of think
everybody goes through it.
Don't want to do that, and like, you know, obviously, it is like all of that stuff is, you know, it feeds into it. But I wanted to.
Sorry, I didn't mean to be a downer. I just realized.
No, you're not a downer.
So sorry.
You're not a downer. We've all been there, and we've all.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, gosh, like 6 months ago, I had life-threatening surgery, and I'm still like trying to get my shit together, right? So, you know, it's just the way life is. Life comes, like, you know, Jenna's fridge broke. You know what I mean? The dog's sick. Like
my fridge broke. My dog got sick. My 14-year-old
life happens.
My 14-year-old beautiful Pioneer plasma television that I loved, that I spent like $7,000 on when it came out because it was like the new technology or whatever, and it was so good. It just died on me like last night before. Yeah, like 2 nights ago, it just died.
There's nothing more. It's so depressing when like, you know, my fridge just went like a couple of months ago.
Same. My fridge just broke. It just stopped working like 2 months ago, and then it turned out that like the fridge that was built in my house, you know, like I bought a brand new home, 14 years ago, and it had a big built-in, like, gorgeous fridge, like, in the cabinets. And I didn't realize, like, oh yeah, that's a very expensive $13,000 fridge. Had no clue that fridges cost that much. I would never buy, like, I would never willingly be like, oh, let's go buy, so then I looked at them and I was like, they're so expensive. What am I going to do? So I just ended up buying, like, I had them just remove the broken like expensive fridge, and I just bought like a regular fridge and I just stuck it in the hole, and it looks terrible. It sticks out too much and it has like this gap, but I'm just like,
we call those serial killer fridges. I have one because it was like $700 and it was cheap, and I moved to LA.
I got a nice fridge. I did buy like a $3,000 Bosch.
Okay. Wait, did you get a Smeg?
What?
Did you get one of the Smeg, the retro-y looking refrigerators?
No, I just got a Bosch. I got like a stainless steel.
Oh, okay.
To look okay, but like apparently like the counter depth is way too big. Anyways, but like the whole thing's been a nightmare because in the fridge they delivered like 3 weeks ago had dents in it, and then they had to like return it. And so finally today after almost 2 months of not having a fridge, I have a fridge. It looks like crap, like as far as the cabinetry, but I have a fridge. And like I get it. Like shit just keeps happening to people. Like I guess
your router blew.
What?
Your router.
My router just stopped working the other day. My TV. I'm just like, okay, I have a possum.
Now to top it off, you just need a.
I have a family of possums that are living in my yard under my deck, and I can't get rid of them.
I mean, I was gonna say now you need a poltergeist to fix everything, and you'll be fine. I mean,
okay, no.
What I was trying to get at is that we all have shit going on.
Yeah, yes, we all have shit going on. It's okay. It's okay, Bonnie. Like, I honestly think I have a ghost. Last night,
I wish.
I know. I think I have a ghost. Last night, I got alert that like on my doorbell camera, and it was like person seen, and there's no person there. And then it happened like an hour later, and it was like person seen, and it happened like all night through the night.
Oh, I know what that is.
And I was like,
that happens to me. That happens to me a lot, and sometimes it's a certain. If your sensor gets dusty, so you have to like dust it constantly, because mine does the same thing. But unlike you, I get excited for ghosts because all during COVID, I as you know, I collect Ouija boards. So like I have them. I
have Ouija boards.
I have them everywhere.
It was scary though. It was scary. I gotta tell you, I'm not gonna lie.
No. I'm not trying to devaluate your situation. I'm just saying
You're
me.
So invalidating, Bonnie. No,
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. For me, I spent all.
Bonnie's over there having a party, like bring up. I want this ghost to come over and visit.
I spent all of COVID.
I would love to see a ghost.
I spent all of COVID trying to get haunted, and it did not work. It did not work. I'm telling you right now. I feel like ghosts think I'm too thirsty. So like every time I use the Ouija board, I feel like I'm literally being ghosted by ghosts. Like they're just like, she's too desperate. We don't want to possess her. We don't want to be here because she's just never going to shut up. And we're going to have an ADHD body and brain, and we won't be able to unpossess her, and we'll be stuck in Bonnie forever. That's what I get. I feel like ghosts are not like, I'm not even good enough to be possessed. So like, anyway, that's the horror movie I'm writing right now.
I would love to see a ghost. Before I forget, there's something I wrote down here. It's like it's a group of rich people, obviously, who get to do horrible things and get rid of it, get away with it. But also, like, they kill themselves then again and again. So from one perspective, I also was like, is this also some underlying thing of like suicidal ideation, and they're hating themselves, and so they're killing themselves over and over again, not just to like kill a part of themselves, but like to like, I don't know, like just because they hate themselves so much.
I wondered that too, and then I wondered, or is this a form of detoxification where they're like they're detoxing, and this is how they do it? They kill their old selves. And even when they talk at the very beginning, once he's like gone through that transformation, and they're like, it's like you have new skin, and it's like you're just getting used to it.
It feels like
resurrection.
Yeah, it sounded like a rich person that just got back from a spa. It doesn't sound like you're now a totally different thing. They're like, you have new skin, and you feel new, and you feel like you're refreshed. They kept saying refreshed, and I was like, this isn't. So I thought about that too. Like maybe this is self-hatred and suicide, but no, I feel like they think it's like they're detoxing, like they're going into a mineral bath and coming out fresh.
Yeah. They're taking like, they've got a little like, they're having one of those detox bags, but instead it's
right.
like this whole process.
And it is
Yeah.
to the extreme. And also, they have those like, and you guys would know this better than me because I am not studied psychology in any kind of full academic way other than just living life. But I do know that there are some techniques for therapy of like rebirthing as a way to like have a mother and a problem child maybe like reconnect, or maybe it's you had childhood trauma and you're trying to, wipe the slate clean or something like that. That's why I was also thinking like maybe it's a way for them to feel like all their sins are gone. It's like going to confession.
Yeah,
Like when
totally.
you're Catholic and you go to confession and you confess and you have this weight lift off of you and you feel like you're supposed to have remorse. You're not supposed to feel like, oh, I could do it again and again and again, but you're supposed to feel that pressure off. And I'm wondering if that's kind of a very elaborate, expensive confession
version of that. Yeah, well,
totally. There's a lot of religious kind of undertones in here, and then there's like also like it's not just killing yourself, but it's also kind of like facing yourself, like the evil in you, the sacrificing yourself in a way.
And then, watch it's that, and the moment of watching, like that scene where they all are watching and they all get up and they're cheering and they're just like, this is, and I'm like, it's totally perverse. Like that, these people are actually enjoying watching themselves.
Well, yeah, and I mean, a lot of society does enjoy watching like really, really brutal, horrific.
Well, it's the whole thing about train wrecks, right? It's like everybody loves a train wreck. You just can't look away.
Yeah, we call those casualty vampires, the people that slow down by car wrecks. And also in other countries, I wish we would do this. We don't because we're America. But other countries like Japan, they'll have a barrier that they'll put around the wreck so no one can see it that's going by. They're respectful. We don't do that here. Here it's like on it's like on TikTok in 3 seconds if you see anything like on the road.
Like, I guess what like I just realized I'm like, slang. Like Australian slang. I'm like, yeah, no, train wreck for us. Like what I mean is like, everybody loves a train wreck. When there's like that crazy girl doing something.
Oh no, I knew what you meant.
I just making sure because I'm like, I said something the other day on something and everybody totally didn't get what I was saying.
Oh,
like,
no. I got it. I just went that other level of saying there are also people that slow down at car wrecks. It just happens in LA daily. So it's like, is this regular traffic or car wreck traffic? Like you never really know why there's traffic in LA for that. But yeah.
Well, it's like, look at the cult of like Britney Spears or like Demi Lovato, like where people just are obsessed with watching people
break down
and like go through horrible things.
Yeah.
People, they can't look away, but they don't want to help. But they're like, there's this thing about people feeding off of like the suffering and
they're sin eaters. Well, not technically sin eaters, but yeah, there are people that are kind of get energy. I mean, I don't like to see people break down because the empathy part of me absorbs.
I lose it.
Well, I absorb it. So like when I'm around people in pain, I feel pain too. And I don't know how not to be that way. So I'm kind of like the over opposite. Like I always want to help even when I probably shouldn't and all of that. And I do wonder, it is kind of a spectator sport, sadly, where people like to watch but like car wreck videos over and over and over, or people drowning or people jumping off a building. I can never do it because it's just too much traumatic for me personally, but I know that some people view it as entertainment, which is very scary that it's gotten to that level that people can dissociate so easily. I don't know, it's like this another thing about this movie about watching yourself die. I wondered too, like on some weird connection to astral projecting when trauma happens to you, because it has been well documented that a lot of, kids or women or people that have been under sexual trauma repeatedly by the same person over and over, sometimes they will astral project to get out of their body and not be there when it's happening so they don't feel like it's happening to them, whether they really are astral projecting or not. But that vision of looking down on yourself and seeing something bad happen to you but not feeling it, I kind of wondered about that with this movie, because especially when he sees himself die for the first time, he's not showing the type of stuff that his wife is clearly showing emotion. His wife is clearly distraught, but he is not. And I wonder too, if that's like a certain weird level of trauma because you're watching yourself die, but you can't be involved mentally, or else it'll be too much for you. Or it's just a clone that doesn't care. But I mean, I don't know. Like I keep going over this in my head over and over and over. What would it be like?
That's what's so good about this film, is that like he keeps everything so like, you know, kind of ambiguous and vague, and like, so that there is all these like weird, you know, interpretations of what's, you know, what you think it could be, what, like, you know, and it changes, I feel like, when you each time you watch this movie. Like if you watch it a couple of times, you react differently. Like what would have happened if the wife had have also had a clone? Like what would have happened then?
Yeah.
If she was watching, how would she react if she was watching herself die too, and it wasn't just him? Or what would happen if there was no wife and it was just one guy?
You find out it wasn't an accident that he killed someone. They messed with the headlights. They did it to him on purpose for fun. This was for entertainment. Yeah, he wouldn't even have his own choice in life. This wasn't even his choice. It just happened to him because a bunch of rich people wanted him as a toy. And that's even more, to me, that's even sadder in a way. But like when he first gives the option, like when he's
also reflective of society, that like the rich, ultra rich view everyone else as kind of disposable to them.
Well, it's like hunting. It's like hunting, right? There's a whole trope in horror films where it's rich people
hunting.
That's like been around forever, but like that's a thing that hasn't gone away. There are many movies
but they don't just destroy him. They also it also kind of shows how like society and the rich also can destroy a regular person's self-esteem and their soul just through their actions, you know, like, and so I kind of felt that from him too. Like it's not just the destruction of, you know, of all of that other stuff. It's also the destruction of his soul and who he is and his self-esteem, because throughout the whole movie, there's this underlying sense of like, I keep saying underlying, I'm so sorry, but my brain isn't thinking of a better word right now. There's like this, there's this theme of like emasculation, where like the wife kind of emasculates him at the beginning, but I think that she's just kind of fed up with him being like this, like, you know.
Well, she's like, stop being a lazy bum, really.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I'm tired of supporting you type thing. And I can't blame her from one perspective, but at the same time, she also, you know, and then, you know, he talks, or Mia Goth's character talks about how like, oh, well, she's emasculating, or you know, they're always emasculating men and all this stuff. So there was also this like, kind of like, they're trying to stoke this like alpha male type thing in him. I don't know if either of you kind of picked.
Oh yeah, the primal. Yeah. She wanted the primal man kind of thing, right? She wanted the guy who takes charge, the guy who like makes decisions. It's also weird too, because I don't necessarily think primal equals strength. And I know that he was grappling with that. And again, I'm not a man, so I've never had that deal with. You have to be a certain way to society, a certain way inside, and the boys don't cry, that kind of whole thing. Because I do come from a family of very strong men.
I have that song in my head, thanks.
Yeah, like my whole family are full of strong men who never show emotion, but I've dated very emotional men as a result. So it's like, I feel like that is something that he was grappling with in this movie. And you can tell when he first gets arrested and he's in that jail and the guy comes to him for the very first time to talk about what's going to happen. He's like, by the way, you're going to die. And then he's like, but have you heard of this other thing that you could do? And, you know, I can't even imagine what the roller coaster of emotions you go through, where you're like, first of all, vehicular manslaughter, that's a horrifying thing because he didn't mean to kill this person. And then he's in a country he doesn't understand the rules. And then he's in jail and he doesn't know if he's going to die or not. And then they say he's going to die, or give us a lot of money and we'll make a clone of you and you can watch that clone get killed by the victim's family. That's a lot of emotions to be dealing with in one 24-hour period. Like, I feel like this was not a very elongated movie. This does not feel like many months. This feels like maybe a few days all this stuff happened.
Oh, yeah.
And I can't even imagine that. And then to watch yourself. So I don't know if he didn't show emotion when he watched himself get killed because he's in shock, or he's just like, I'm not me. I have to disassociate. Because that's a lot. That's a lot. I mean, I don't know what I would do.
And stuff there. Yeah. I mean, I was going to say something and now I totally forgot.
I do wonder though, what this movie
saying again. What?
I'm sorry. What were you saying? I'm sorry.
We're doing it again. We're just talking.
I know. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just got into what you were saying. I had something I was gonna say, and I like held on to it because I was like, "Don't interrupt, listen, listen, don't interrupt." and then I got into what you were saying, and now I just like lost it.
Well, I'll say what I was going to say, and I bet that'll trigger what you were going to say. But what I was going to say is, how different would this movie have been if it was Mia Goth in that main character role, as in the same emotions and stuff? Like, what if this was a woman that had to deal with all this and not a dude? Like, I wonder if the gender flipping of that would have made a different movie, different experience, different,
especially the SA scene. Like that wouldn't have played the way it is, and I'm sure a lot of men who watched that thought it was very sexy, and
Oh yeah.
But of course, I was like, that wasn't consensual.
I know, right? I was like,
You have to wonder. I remember what I was going to say. You have to wonder how much these rich people are in like cahoots with like these authority figures. Because they're all in the car. Well, they're all in the car. They all decided to hit and run. It wasn't even his decision. He wanted to go to the police. So why aren't they all being tried? You know what I mean? Because they all committed like some kind of hit and run. But it's just him, and they're really targeting him. So I'm just like, because the cop also says like, oh, that was my cousin or my brother or my uncle or something that like lent you the car. You please for me, like kind of like just say that he didn't loan you the car and you stole it, So it's like, it's very.
That was strange, right? I was like, you just let leverage slip through your fingers. Don't agree to anything unless you get something in return. If he says you're not getting anything in return, then don't say it.
I literally wrote down something about like,
why did you
agree to like collaborate with the cop, dude? Like, what are you doing?
Well, it's like the extreme fear and like adrenaline. Like I was thinking about it. I was thinking, imagine. I think the way it played out is probably very likely to be how it really would play out. It would be. They don't want you to read the document. They don't want you to know what they're doing. Yeah. It's like a quick process. Just give us the money and get out. Like, and I feel like, like all of that stuff being compounded onto you in such a short space of time, and all you're in complete fear mode. You're like, I'm going to jail. Like for life, or I'm going to get, the death penalty probably. Like, so you're like, at that point, you'd probably just like willing to do almost anything because you're just like, oh, they must be right. Because, a lot of, you would assume like this is person in power, this, they know what they're talking about type thing. And I mean, not everyone does that, obviously. But when you're in another country.
Where's the American embassy? I'm not saying.
I was asking that too.
But like you're in a remote area where there isn't an embassy really close by. And it's a culture where it is, eye for an eye. And honor killing and all this kind of stuff. And that's the law. There's nothing you can do about it. Like, I mean, that immense fear, like, and you see it in the wife, like when she's just watching him going through it. She's not even, like when they go and get them and they bring them in and, she's freaking out, he's freaking out, but like she hasn't even done anything, technically. And so, it's also what's going to, she's worried about what's going to happen to her. And then, obviously she pays for James's thing because she's the one with the money. But
more than once. More than once. And she doesn't realize.
And
the two urns, like they give you your ashes of your dead clone.
That's what I love too, because I was waiting for a moment. I was waiting for a moment where we would just see a wall of urns and we'd be like, wait, how many times has he done that? How many times are we doing this?
Well, because when he went and took it again, I'm like, why would you even want that? That's another like weird psychological thing. Why would you want to?
Would you feel like an innate connection to this clone? Like we don't know. Like you might, you might feel some sort of like deep internal bond.
Familiar, like familial. Like it's like the genetics. Feels like it's a part of his family.
Like, I guess it's like that thing too of the other trope, right? Like the twins, and there's always one that dies in birth and one that lives, and that whole tropey thing. Like Malignant is a great example of that. Which, by the way, I love that movie, even though people make fun of it. I love that movie.
I didn't like it that much. I didn't like that or Hereditary that
much. When
the
head came out at the end, I was like,
that's why I love these discussions, because we all come from like different likes and dislikes. That's why I love that you don't love those movies, because that's when we talk about them and you're going to give me some insight that I've never had before. Because now I'm thinking, am I a horrible person for wanting an urn of my dead clones back with my bookcases?
But that's
I would take it. I would do it. I would take the urn.
That's why we have this show, and that's why I have, you know, we have this, and why I'm not replaced, you know, not replaced, but that's why we don't have other
With a
hosts.
clone.
You know what I mean? Like we don't have other hosts because we have such unique personalities that, and we all fire off. Like, you know, Bonnie can go off on her tangent with her killing stuff. Jenna can go off with her, you know, with her arty farty and like, you know, and all that. And like, you know, I can bounce from wherever, you know, like, so I'm like, I love this, love that, like, you know.
I love that you both are so insightful about movies that I don't know. And things
That's
that
okay.
like
You're insightful about we all have like
You're
these
insightful about
backgrounds.
stuff too that I
We all
don't
have
know.
different backgrounds. We all have different like knowledge bases. That's why these discussions are so much fun. And when I finally do get possessed, you'll have a fourth co-host that you haven't even met yet, because I haven't been possessed yet. But when it happens, I'm trying to like put a positive spin on possibly. I don't know. I shouldn't say that. Careful what you wish for, Bonnie. It could happen.
Yeah,
I could end up getting possessed and be like, you guys, it's not as fun as I thought.
But
no one everyone's gonna
um,
gaslight me when I finally get possessed. But anyway, yeah, this movie is, I feel like I can't wait to watch this for a third time, because now that we've had this discussion, now I'm going to be looking at other stuff I wasn't looking at before.
Well, and again, what I love about this show is that like each time we do it, someone has like, oh, did you see that? Did you see this? And then I go back and revisit later, whenever that may be, and I'm like, I have all these things in my mind to look for, and like little like nuggets that I didn't catch, or you know, whatever.
Isn't it interesting that the way our brains individually work is we automatically see certain things based on like our experiences or our automatic like natural lens that we have, and then when someone else like brings something up, it can we learn something, or we read something, or we go to a class or whatever, it opens our eyes up to like a whole different way of thinking, learning, and like viewing things. And that's why I love school so much.
And also this movie, we could have tweaked it just slightly, and it could be a genre, which does exist, of clone horror, dark comedy rom-com, where the clone ends up being the better dad, the better husband, better boyfriend, better boss. And you have like the original hating the clone for being a better version of them. And those are rom-coms. There's a lot of movies that have that plot. And it's very interesting to me how someone can view something so horrific and so creepy, which is the exact same thing that's happening here. It's just different soundtrack, different plot point, right? So if this had been a different movie, this had been a rom-com, instead of a clone, you know, doing all these horrifying things, maybe the clone ends up being a better husband to M than the original. And then he could have been a better writer, and he could be a blockbuster writer.
M gets the raw end of the deal.
She really does.
It really does.
She also pays for a week. Remember that's actually a good point.
Yeah, no, he goes to the front desk, and she's like, oh, do you want it to be under M Foster or whatever? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, oh,
I know. I was like, what?
Yeah, and she said, and later on, she actually says like it's already paid for. Like I saw it's already been paid for, you know what I mean?
Oh my
God.
God.
That actually brings us back to the timing, because when he goes to the desk, he only asks for a week. He's only paid for a week. So all of this shit is just happening within days.
I know. That's a
lot.
Like
they're dropping dead, getting killed.
There's a lot to process.
There's so much trauma in this. Like I kept thinking it from like the view of like a therapist too. Like, and I was like, wow, because I'm studying a lot of trauma stuff right now in school, and I'm just like, this is like trauma. And then I was thinking, you know, when the first clone gets killed by the little boy, right? And man, you're right, he really does the number on him. But I was like, isn't, you know, like I understand that this is kind of like a biblical eye for an eye type thing too, in their culture and their religion. It's a very religious culture. But like, it's also the perpetuation of the cycle of trauma, because that kid is going to be traumatized after doing that to him. Like, that child
does it twice. Being forced to do that as well. So
yeah.
He does it twice, because the first time he's like horrified, second time he's laughing. So it does.
Did that really happen to him?
I don't know.
And he strangles him, and then it's the girl on top. Like, oh man, there's like so much going on.
I don't know. That's the problem with these movies, but also the good thing about these movies, right? You don't know what's real, what's not. You don't know what's false memory. You don't know what is in sequence. You don't know. And so it's like, because of that, and also I think because they really set you up for dreamlike sequences, especially with the sex scene. But throughout, you're like, wait, who's punching who? Who's killing who? Who's a clone? Who's real? Who's not? And also the ending, like you said, is so banal and weird that you're like, wait, is this just going to keep going in a cycle? And we just don't see the cycle
Yeah, like, is he
anymore because it's the end of the
waiting?
movie, but
Is
you
he
don't know.
waiting? Yeah, is he waiting for next winter?
Well,
Or
I
is he
don't
like,
think one of the guys that was in the group of rich people's mentioned that he had cancer at one point or something. And I was kind of like, oh, well, that's his like motivation kind of for doing this because he's dying anyways. And he's probably bitter. He's probably, you know, even though he's rich, he might not be able to stop his cancer. So he's just
Well,
like,
you would hope he would pay extra for a clone that's cancer free, but that's probably not, maybe not on the menu. I don't know. Like it's, who knows? Like I would assume that would be a rich person thing of, oh yeah, I want a clone that's not disease ridden. And that also is a horror film trope of getting clones that are not disease ridden. Or, you know, you swap bodies with someone like Get Out, where it's like a whole other kind of thing that rich people do where they're just taking over people's bodies without consent.
wait,
rich people have got a lot to answer for in horror films. It's like, we're hunting, we're cloning, we're like eating people. We're,
I mean,
like,
you think
know,
taking over
doing
Twitter's
all this
bad. I know, right? We don't even know what Elon Musk does in his off time. So I hope this is not like we're just
I know,
like,
right?
you know,
He's like got I gotta say, he's got a third kid with Grimes, and I'm like, where did the third kid come from, Grimes? What are you
well,
doing,
he
babe?
had two women. I don't want to gossip, but
yeah, that's a whole other. That's a whole other
woman
podcast.
pregnant at the same time.
But
He had a baby. He had twins with his employee too, like at the same
He's
time.
got lots of kids, yeah. But I was
he's
like,
got a ton. He's got a ton.
like,
I don't know if you
Grimes.
know this, but in California, if you have over 10 children and they have different moms, you don't have to pay child support.
Dog out. What a
Yeah,
dog.
What?
The Nick Cannon law. Yeah, if you have more than 10 children with different moms
Different
and they're all
moms,
different moms,
you
you
don't
do not have
have
to pay child support because they think you're not a rich person. They think you're a poor person that can't handle it. And so it's across the board. There's no differential about economy or your budget or anything. So if you want to just spread your seed and have a trillion kids, you don't have to pay for them.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
even
Mandatory vasectomies on men until they reach a certain age or a certain maturity or something like that.
Here's the thing. I will say, if I was so
I'm just
rich I could afford a clone, I don't think I would go the scary rich person route. I would go the Jurassic Park rich person route, where I would be like, okay, we're bringing back everything that got extinct because of asshole humans, and I'm putting them all on an island, and I'm just going to live there, and y'all can just screw yourself. Because that's how I think I would abuse my power and money, would not be for bettering humanity or becoming a serial killer. I think I would just make a bunch of woolly mammoths and just hang out. But I'm curious though, if you had a chance to clone yourself, and if you don't want to answer that, that's fine because it's kind of personal. Okay. If you had a chance to clone yourself, would you? Or no?
No.
That's too much. Okay.
No, I don't think I would.
No.
And
They don't have to live with you. They don't have to live with you.
No.
This is
okay.
It's circumstantial, right? Because it depends what the conditions are. Am I in jail and I'm going to get killed? And like, am I choosing?
Yeah, let's just say
even if you're in jail and you're gonna get killed, like unless you have a swap, unless you swap your clone out, your clone's the one that goes to jail. Like I just no, it's icky. It creeps me out. It's just like another me would freak me out because I would just be like, what is it thinking? Is it having the same thoughts as me? Does it is it have an essence of my soul? Like, does it have a different soul?
What if it goes crazy and kills a bunch of people? How are you gonna prove it's not you that did it because your DNA is the same? So just common law would go out the window because how would you prove that you didn't commit the crime? But your clone
I'm
did?
sorry, but cloning an AI
also like you're just the shock of like seeing someone that's identical to you.
Oh.
I don't think I would like that at all. I would just be like, ew.
I mean, it's kind of like having a twin, right?
But strangely enough, I actually always wanted a twin. So what is that? What is that disconnect that I have right?
Well, I'm the daughter of a twin. So
are they identical or not?
They're fraternal, not identical.
Okay. Identical twins always like
identical is way worse. I've known a lot of identical twins growing up in high school. And like I've had non-identical male female twins and then identical male, identical female. And like they've got like a whole creepy level going on. The identical ones.
They do. I grew up with a parents I grew up with twins that were like my best friends in grade school and junior high. And yeah, it was very interesting to hang out with them a lot and just kind of seeing like their connection and stuff. And they're still, they're my age and they're still deeply connected. I believe they still live together. They like,
Well, it's
Yeah.
like I was obsessed for ages, like especially when I was early in school and when I was really like in the depths of doing all psych and stuff, and I was like really obsessed with twin stuff. And I was like, when twins are separated at birth and they don't even know they're a twin, and then they reunite them later, like they find each other, and then you
The studies are crazy on it. Like, it's
and all the shit that like is the same, but they've been apart and they didn't even know each other existed.
And they had completely different childhoods and upbringings and like adoptive families and stuff. It's so fascinating to me.
And one of the weirdest things that always freaks me out is the twins that marry twins.
Oh my God, I know. It's so crazy, right? I love it, but it's crazy. But no, I don't think
it's creepy, but it's so interesting. Like, it's so intriguing.
I don't think the world could handle another me.
I mean, let's just say the world would be we would be very lucky to have two of you, but I understand that.
No, it would explode.
Between the three of us, I think maybe we don't need any extras. There's a lot.
I can barely handle myself. I don't think I can handle another one of me without totally flipping out. So I don't think it would benefit me in any way or anybody else, especially if especially if my clone also had ADHD. Like if I could get a non-ADHD, like too much in her head. Yeah. But I don't know. Like it's an interesting thing to think about. I feel like we're in a time now where it could or could not happen, human cloning, right? But it's still so new, or still at least on our knowledge. I mean, who knows what's happening behind the screen, behind the Wizard of Oz curtain. But I think luckily we're not at that stage yet. Like luckily we don't have replicants. Luckily the humanoid robots still have that uncanny valley situation where we know it's a robot and it's not a person. The cloning thing though, I think we're probably maybe 2 or 3 decades away from that. It could happen, but the legislation and also the religious fervor behind not doing it would probably stop. A lot of religious stuff that seeps its way into law definitely stymies scientific advancement to that level, because we still have STEM research issues really that people have. So I think that it probably will be done in other countries or places where they don't have to have that type of,
I was gonna say, like, America's very stifled by religion.
Yeah,
and
I mean too, and especially women's bodies. Like, I mean, it's just a whole thing. So I don't think we're the country that is going to do it. I think maybe other countries will do it, but I don't know if we will.
Even like the anti-LGBT like laws all over, all over America. Like, cloning opens up so many things. Like like for example, like I was watching a documentary and they were talking about, like what the possibilities would be in the future if you could clone and
well, you can do genetic choosing now though. I mean, that is something you can do legally now.
And they're talking about like genetic traits, right? So you're like, I'm going to have a baby, right? And you're like, and they're like, I don't want my baby to be gay. I don't want my baby to have just Down syndrome. I don't want my kid to this, that. But they're talking about that to the level of like not gay, like super smart, like where you can fine tune everything to exactly what you want. That
kind of not. Like I know some genetic diseases, they have been able to stop that in a way before the baby's born. The gay gene is either a myth or not. I don't think it is. I think sexuality is a spectrum. I don't think it's like a thing you can just pluck out and you're straight.
Oh, no.
But as far as genetic diseases, there are some things that can be done. But here's the thing too. It's like, you don't want this to turn into Gattaca. You don't want it to be like, oh, I'm picking this. Though I will say when sperm banks became a thing, remember that I might be too old, but 70s, not 70s, 80s and 90s, it was like you could decide, oh, this guy went to Princeton. I want his sperm. And then you find out later, they're not getting smart people's sperm. They're getting poor college boy, frat boy sperm. They're not. They're not. A lot of that's made up because they want people to think they're getting the best of the best. Or worse, you have the actual doctor giving his sperm, and then there's like 50 kids with the same dad, which has happened over and over.
I watched that documentary, and
I know. So you kind of have to be like, I don't know. I'm not a mom. I've never had to make a choice like that. I don't think I ever would, but also I've never been a mom. So I can't be like, I wouldn't want this. I wouldn't want that. But here's the thing. We are in a society now where we get to handpick everything all the time, instant satisfaction. We have, you know,
Instant
dating apps and all this stuff. We're like this close to doing that to our children, and that makes me nervous. Well, it makes me nervous because if you have everybody the same, then you don't have you know, these people that are all different kinds of creative because they've overcome things or because their just disability makes them special, unique, and awesome and talented. So you don't want to have like, I don't want the universe to just be all the same person. How boring. Like that would be fucking boring. You need people from all different backgrounds, all different likes. Like, what if Ray Charles wasn't blind? Would we have gotten the great Ray Charles piano player?
100%.
You know?
And that's the thing. Like,
I'm sorry to interrupt really quick. Can
you
you guys hear me?
Yeah.
We can hear you, but you froze, but you look good.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah,
my screen is completely frozen. I just have like the wheel of death right now, and I'm like trying to get.
No, we can hear you. We can hear you.
My computer won't like let me do anything right now.
Oh, no. Well, we can hear you. We can hear you
perfectly. We just just no.
Okay,
movement.
well, hopefully it'll catch up and stop. But okay, I'm glad.
And also, you're posed in a beautiful way. Like whenever the camera freezes on me, it looks like I'm about to like hemorrhage or sneeze. And your frozen picture looks like the freaking Mona Lisa. So I hate you right now.
Oh my gosh!
Someone actually said in the chat, "Is Jenna perfectly still?"
There you are. You're fine. You're moving again.
There we go. Yes. Okay. Finally.
Are there any Renee? Are there any questions from anyone in the chat? I mean, I know that there are people watching. Do they have any?
Yes, there's a lot of like, a lot of questions about movies to do. Like, for example, Dead Ringers.
Oh yeah, Cronenberg. There you go. The classic. Have you guys watched the TV show?
No,
Dead Ringers, that's based on?
I love that actress. I love the actress. So I haven't watched it yet, but I've been meaning to. Definitely.
I'm curious if it's scary or just weird. Like I am curious because the Dead Ringers movie, let me tell you, that gynecology scene will haunt me till the rest of my life.
I haven't seen it, so don't give it away.
Yeah. No.
That's all I'm saying.
All you need to know, Jenna, is that the original film is 2 males.
Okay.
The TV show is 2 females.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know how it plays out in the television.
I don't
show.
either. I'm curious.
Maybe
we should watch it.
It's quite unique to the male, like so. It's
maybe
kind of.
We should. I mean,
we could always do like a series where like and if there's new episodes, we like meet up for like each episode to discuss it.
I mean, we could. And let me tell you, I've been dying to talk about the new American Horror Story with anybody that'll listen because the Rosemary's Baby reference, but also fucking Kardashians in it. But
I could go off about this right now, Bonnie.
I know. I feel like we need a support group. I feel like
I gave up at season 4.
I need an American Horror Story support group at this point because, like, I
love the first season. The first season was phenomenal.
Oh yeah,
like, I lost it when they started putting B-grade celebrities in it.
I love Coven.
I mean, I don't know. I liked Coven, obviously.
Me too.
But I do feel like each season, like I'm really losing interest. I think I really started to lose interest around Roanoke. I was like, okay.
Oh yeah, that was weird.
They started putting this like reality TV stuff in it, and I was just like, this is so dumb. Like I can't. But going back to the current season, okay. I will say straight up, Kim Kardashian is a brilliant businesswoman. She is incredibly successful. She was a beautiful woman before she did any of that stuff to like any of the plastic surgery. And you know what? If it makes her happy, that's her own thing. I am not gonna hate on it. I'm not gonna hate on it. But I will say that like it was really shocking for me to see the contrast between someone who hasn't had any work done, like Emma Roberts, and then her like in the scenes. And I was like, wow, like it's the plastic surgery is just getting very extreme. And I feel like it kind of made me sad to watch it because I was like, man, I was like, she's so pretty, but like she was beautiful before, like any of that. And I just feel like it's starting to get to like where it's like almost like I don't want to hate.
Well, it almost looks like the augmented, like the AI and the filters, like in reality now.
But that's also a problem. I think I talked about this on one of our episodes because I as a journalist, I cover a lot of science journalism too. And one of the things that a lot of plastic surgeons, I interviewed a bunch of plastic surgeons in LA and asked them, you know, what app is the most problematic for them. And basically what's happening is girls were getting these app filters and to make them look skinnier, nose narrower, all this stuff. And they would go to their plastic surgeons. These are 16, 15-year-old girls going to
like,
their
mom
like Yes.
Yep.
Exactly. And a lot of them too were anime filters. So they wanted their eyes bigger, all of that. And they're like, the body dysmorphia has basically tripled, quadrupled, whatever, since apps have come out to make you look different on Instagram. But also the problematic with, and we get, Jenna, you're in LA, right? You're in LA with me. LA is like plastic surgery bingo sometimes when you're like, I never ask if anyone, I'm not a surge killer. Like I don't care if you've had surgery. I don't care. I'm never gonna like say,
No, I
oh
have
my
a lot
God,
of friends who do.
that.
I have a lot of friends who've done a lot of things, and the extremity of it is, and the fact that she's such a role model to people, and it's so unattainable for the average person. And
that's what I mean.
It's just unrealistic. And I mean, society has always produced these unrealistic beauty standards for people. But they were just, for me, like, the only reason I bring it up is just because that was actually like kind of shocking to me when I turned it on. I didn't expect like the contrast between their two like looks to be so like jarring, but I was kind of like, wow.
I mean,
like,
and also like Emma Roberts does come from the Julia Roberts gene pool. So I mean, there is that, but also we don't know if she's had work done either.
We don't. But if she's had it done very nicely and
right, natural, right. And also it's interesting too, because like another one of my favorite horror films, which maybe is more fantasy than horror, is Brazil. And I do love their take on plastic surgery and how it is almost like a sci-fi moment for some women. But the thing that I notice a lot in LA, and this is something I try not to do, I haven't had plastic surgery, but I will tell you, I have hair extensions. I'm not going to lie about that. I'm losing weight right now via Wegovy, but I'm doing it for pre-diabetes. But I am never going to tell people I lost weight through diet and exercise, because genetically that doesn't work for me. And so when I see celebrities who are very heavy that are suddenly thin, and they say, oh, I just did this new diet, which they did not do, or they're saying, oh, I did exercise, which they did not do. That upsets me, because then you have people like me who spent my entire teens and 20s like doing all these fad diets because I thought I could get the same results that these celebrities swear by. That to me is what's dangerous, is when they get plastic surgery and lie about it, or they're getting all this other stuff that are not accessible to regular people and lying about it. Because then you have a teen girl or a teen boy at home, or someone that's, non-binary, or someone that just has body issues. And they're like, why can't I be that person? And it's because it's a fiction. It's science fiction. It's science fiction horror. You can't get what certain people get because they're not giving you all the facts, but also maybe you don't want that stuff because it's dangerous. Oh yeah, Stephen King's movie Thinner. Thinner's a perfect example of that. Though I will say, when I was a teenage girl, I was like, why is this a horror film? Because that I would have done a deal with the devil.
I was like, thinner, let's get thinner. Like, it's disturbing.
It didn't catch with me the bad thing about that. And I have been up and down in my weight. I have tried everything. And I will say, though, I've done dangerous things to try to lose weight. And I'm glad that it didn't end badly. Like, I'm glad I'm here talking with you, because there could have been moments where I did something really foolish. Really, and I've had eating disorders. I've had everything. Like, I'm not, I'm pretty transparent about it, because I hope that anyone that listens to this who's going through something similar knows that it's a process to like yourself again, but also everybody is different. So you can't do fad diets and get the same result as other people, because you don't know what's happening behind the scenes. And it's a process. And also, it's one of those things too that I think, especially with body horror as a genre, that comes up a lot. Like, comes up a lot with plastic surgery, of wanting to change how you look, of wanting to be a certain type, but willing to give up your soul, or willing to give up your humanity for it.
What was the one I just watched the other day? The crimes again. What is it?
Oh, Punishment. The other Cronenberg.
No, the crimes. It was very body horror.
It's by his dad. I know what you mean. It's
crimes. I don't want to say crimes against humanity. What is it? It's
That's a game.
what is it? It's crimes.
I think I know what you're talking about. I mean, it is a well-known genre in horror to have body horror about dieting or trying to lose weight or doing a deal with the devil or whatever.
Crimes of the Future.
Oh, yeah, that's good. Yeah.
That's his dad.
Yeah, okay, so that was weird.
That is weird. That's a good one.
Yeah,
that's a very
but that is a remake of
but I haven't seen the original. I just saw the remake one. But but back to the whole American Horror Story thing. I was actually shocked. Her acting wasn't as bad as I thought it was gonna be.
It's like reality acting.
At the same time, she basically felt like herself to me. She didn't feel like she was
Yeah,
acting.
it was like, you know, Madonna, right? It's like there are people that are iconic that don't have a lot of range, I would say. Like Lady Gaga, right? Her in American Horror Story Hotel, I thought she was great. A lot of people didn't, but I
I
didn't
liked
care.
her actually in that.
I did too, but we don't have like, I mean, now we know her acting range with, you know, her most recent films, but in the beginning, people were just like, oh, she's just a singer who wants to act.
Yeah.
I think that's also a problem with this country. We're very one note about our celebrities. We don't like them to branch out like other countries allow.
Totally.
J-Lo's a perfect example. Cher. Cher's a perfect example.
You can be an actress and a singer.
Yeah,
but
here
we don't
they
like
make
our
fun of
singers.
you.
We don't like
Well,
our singers becoming actors.
In the United States, they tend to be kind of tunnel vision, Renee. They kind of make fun of you if you try to venture elsewhere, though there are people that have done it, like Cher, Dolly Parton. You know, there's a lot of singers that also have range acting.
Because that's how everyone starts in Australia. You know, that like all the actors start in
bands.
They either start in our terrible soapies, and then they move, then they become a singer, and then they become an actor. So almost every famous actor from Australia has at one point been in a soapy here, or has had a singing career.
Europe is like that too, but for some reason in the United States, they get really finicky. They get really like snobby about crossing streams.
Same in a lot of Asia as well. Like if you're an actor, you're also a singer. It's kind of expected that you do.
Yeah, it's a skill set. It's a skill set. But I do know that, like, when I was watching, I do know that there was a lot of ballyhoo about, you know, a Kardashian being in this. But then I thought, yeah, but she's playing a publicist to the stars, and I've met a lot of publicists that act just like that. So it's not like she's being Kim Kardashian this, you know, she's just playing a role. And also the humor in this is actually pretty good. I mean, to bring up Olivia Wilde, there was a wild card joke that I thought was very interesting about, you know, people be obsessed with your personal life until somebody does something else worse, and you just gaslight them into thinking that nothing happened to you, and that's a wild card. Like, I love the dialogue in this, but also I'm a huge Rosemary's Baby fan, and seeing this kind of like take bits and pieces of that, but also taking bits and pieces from pregnant horror film genre I've never been pregnant with a child, so I don't physically know how that feels, but mentally it horrifies me. So when I watch this stuff and you're like, oh, is she gonna give birth to a baby or something other? That is horrifying. And I wonder,
there was a lot of films, like a lot of films, and even daytime films that dealt with that kind of stuff in the 70s and 80s. Loads of them. I remember my baby.
I was horrified about the concept.
And I'd be like having lunch, and I'd be like, "What am I watching right now?"
Well, that's interesting. You said what decades was that very popular?
70s and 80s. There was a lot of films,
which is like right after like the female sexual liberation like movement and birth control and everything like that. So that's interesting.
Yeah, and then you had like obviously the Manson murders, which Sharon Tate.
Yeah. I think also there were a lot of key murders where women who lost children were then killing pregnant women and stealing their babies, and that was a thing that was happening a lot, or I don't know, a lot, but it was reported a lot in the 80s. Also, once infertility became a thing that was huge, you saw a lot of horror films dealing with, well, I want to have a baby at any cost. I'll do anything to have a baby. And that's when you have the Omen-esque type babies, or you have the babies where it's like, that did not come from a human father, or that was a deal with the devil or whatever, because infertility is such a prevalent thing right now where a lot of people are desperate for kids and will do anything. And that's where horror seeps in. Anytime there's desperation in real life, I think horror definitely gets a foothold in there, because it has crossed our minds. What if?
I was just thinking when you said that, like that, there's that the TV show. I only watched the first season, but I know they're on season 2 or 3 now. With which is about exactly, you know, where she's got the baby and it's not really the baby. I don't know. It's really weird.
The Changeling.
Yeah. Oh no, Changeling is an Australian cult.
Changeling's another movie. There's another movie, Changeling, about a boy that got replaced by another boy. But that's different.
So I'm watching this show on like Apple TV Plus or something called The Changeling. It's like a new show or something.
Oh yeah, that's different. Yeah.
And in it, like they say, like that's not a baby. It's not a real baby. Like, and then like the woman kills her baby and shit. It's crazy. It's crazy. But I'm also intrigued by the format that they're doing this. I was about to say this semester. Oh gosh, I'm such this season of American Horror Story, because it's like, we're already at like what 3 episodes of this delicate one, and then I guess I just saw an advertisement that they're gonna do like a short run one of like with Lana Del Rey, like which is interesting. So I guess they're just
they've got that side one that's like AHS stories or whatever it is. They've got like a
yeah,
side.
that one's different too, and that one was actually kind of cheesy. I'm not gonna lie.
It was cheesy, but they were fun short story type.
They were. Some of them I liked more than others. The one with Billy Lord and like the demon and like whatever. I thought that one was really, really cheesy. I thought it was me and my sister watched it together and we were like, this is real. It's kind of cheesy. And I really like Billy Lord like a lot. So
yeah, totally. I mean it's interesting too because like I feel like there's an American Horror Story season for everyone. So like there are things that I will never like that I know I have friends that like swear by it's their favorite thing. Some hit too close to home, like the cult one when Trump was president, and it was like this is what's going to happen when Trump is a little too Purge-esque for my liking. Yeah. But I also like stuff that makes fun of current society and current things. And and whether you like or hate Ryan Murphy, and I have my own issues sometimes with how women are portrayed, but I think on certain levels he does his homework. And the 1970s gay serial killer thing was a thing, but also I'm glad that got covered because it talked about the AIDS epidemic. It talked about sexuality. It talked about New York City at the time was like that. Yeah. And also there was a serial killer going on. Like, so I appreciated that, but I also like his crazy stuff where it's like, that's never going to happen in a million years, but I like watching it because it's crazy and it's fun because there's a great cast and you don't know what's going to happen next. And I like anything that's not predictable, not just homage. Yeah. And also he's done everything. So he did the Killer Summer Camp season that was making fun of kind of the 80s. And I loved that because it was so 80s.
I liked that one. I liked that one.
But it wasn't taking itself seriously. It wasn't taking itself seriously, but I do believe that, you know, give this new season a try. I'm going to watch the whole season, but I was interested with how much of this is going to be Rosemary's Baby? How much is it going to be The Brood or Children of the Corn? Or is it going to be Village of the Damned? Does it get, or The Omen? Like, is this going to be like an apocalypse baby or a spider baby? Like, I'm here for it. And I don't necessarily like pregnancy horror as a genre because it kind of spooks me out, but I'm here for this season. I'll wait to see what happens, but
yeah,
maybe the next time
I watch every one of them. I watch every one of them just to watch them, you know, just to see, you know, but I do think that like the beginning, like I liked Murder House a lot. I liked Coven a lot.
That was my favorite one.
Freak
like
Show pissed me off because Freak Show pissed me off.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's problematic in a lot of ways, but I was really upset when they killed off the little lady.
Well, I had a problem with Freak Show, not because of the characters, because I thought the character is probably one of the one season that had probably the most diverse cast of people and background. But I just didn't like how much non-consensual stuff. There's just a lot of violence that I wasn't prepared to have every episode. Like I can deal with spurts of violence and things that I know are probably going to happen, but I think with that particular and the Asylum series as well was a little bit too much for me personally as far as like victim violence, whereas other seasons it's kind of like, oh yeah, she had it coming because she's a witch and she did this blah blah blah, or yeah, he's gonna do this because of blah blah blah. There was some like, I don't know, some logic to it, but when it's illogical violence for violence sake, sometimes it's like really it hits me too hard. But that's just me. That's just me.
I just like Asylum because I believe in Asylum they kept bursting out in song and stuff, and I
was weird. I
don't like it when like scary.
I don't like it when people
a lot of things burst out into song. I'm just always kind of like, come on.
I am, and I don't know if that was when he was also doing Glee. I mean, you also have to remember Ryan Murphy did Glee, so I always wonder like how much of that.
I never watched that.
But like that's horror in itself because like
you probably thought it was funny to do that. But I didn't find it funny. I was like, I'm sick of media like showing mental health and like facilities and stuff in such an evil, horrible way.
I agree. I agree.
Yes, I mean, obviously that was based at a different time when asylums were very much not exactly like Brian Murphy's view of as an asylum, but they were quite bad.
Well, like very, very bad.
Very bad. I mean, there's lobotomies, lots of sexual assault, lots of prostitution.
And sadly, that's still a thing. I mean, that hasn't really gone away because as long as there's humans, there's going to be bad humans doing bad things.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I agree with you. I mean, I think we talked about this
I don't
a
think
few
it's a
times
good
on this
thing
show.
to
Is that I'm against the mentally ill being the evil, because mental illness is something that affects all of us on some level in some way, but also
100%.
Crohn.
I tell
But
people
like
I
and
tell people
Cronism.
every single time. Every
Yeah,
single
and like
every single person in this world has suffered. I just want to say this real quick. Every single person
No, go
has
ahead.
suffered from depression, anxiety, something at some point in their life. And that's why I think that I told a teacher this once when I was in my undergrad, and I said, I hate that mental illness has such a bad like label type thing, because I really think it's just the human condition that we're all experiencing. You know,
Oh,
like
yeah, 100%. But it's demonized, and it's been
100%.
demonized for a long time.
So go ahead.
And
Go ahead.
Oh no,
I was just saying,
was
that's why I
gonna say
get
the same.
frustrated, is when I
Yeah.
see it on the screen and I'm like, oh, it just makes me frustrated as someone who has mental health disorders and has had them for a long time. It's already such a struggle just to be treated and seen outside of having your mental health issues and, you know, not being defined by your disease. And I hate it when I just really hate it when things are put on screen that are demonizing or taking advantage of, or like anything like that. It's 2023, and I don't think it's necessary anymore, like to be doing that. And
I mean, the
we
sad
want
thing
to,
is that in this country, asylums aren't really standard anymore because they were basically gotten rid of in the late 80s. But I will say something that I have a problem with is that a lot of mentally people that are struggling with a lot of mental illness, a lot of them are homeless and they're not getting the medication and everything they need, because this country is very bad about health insurance and Medicare and getting people the help they need. And so you have a whole society of homeless, and not all homeless have mental problems. A lot of it's just bad luck or drugs, or they're kicked out of their homes for being gay or domestic violence. So there's a long list of things of why people could be homeless, not just one type of homeless.
Or they have some medical condition that like devastates them, and because our health
right
is terrible, like they just lose everything because they had to have one surgery.
I think though the problem I'm having too is the zombie genre sometimes mimicking unwell homeless roaming the streets, and that's something that I keep seeing pop up more and more in a lot of horror films. It's like, oh, we're afraid of the homeless. I personally love movies where it's like the homeless people are actually the heroes. They protect everyone. They're smart. They know what's going on. They're the survivors. That's the stuff I like to see. I don't like to see groups of people that are suffering in real life demonized. Just like I don't like to see cronyism. I don't like to see I don't like dementia horror, because dementia is so commonplace in our older citizens. And anyone who's had a parent go through dementia, it's gut-wrenching to watch. And to have that turn into a trope for horror films really frustrates me, because then it's like you're making it that like even the movie Old, which was hilarious. I mean, I'm not gonna say M. Night Shyamalan did a great job with that movie, but
I don't think I've seen it.
But it's just the whole premise is
it's one of those
no-brainer
horror, right? A mainstream.
Yeah, but it's like being old should not. And I don't even think Midsummer was really about that. But I don't like seeing old people just because they're old, they're creepy. You know what I mean? Like I feel like that's not a good horror trope to go down.
Well, it's just reflective of the ageism in our society.
Oh yeah, totally.
And also it's very much a Western society problem. Like a lot of non-Western countries value their elderly and stuff, and they have them.
It's individualistic versus collectivistic cultures and
yeah.
We just shove them in old homes and just try
to forget. That's what happens here too. Like it's like don't want to deal with it. Meh, put it, and
that's why we need to really be pro Coven.
I love Coven.
I love Coven.
But
I'm just gonna say, I know we got off topic.
We got way off topic.
We segued into an American Horror Story
episode
review.
I mean,
but we were talking about Infinity Pool.
I feel like there's a lot of crossover, and people watching this probably have watched American Horror Story. So I mean, it's fine.
Definitely. I don't think anyone, but just for those who are tuning in, we are talking about Infinity Pool, not American Horror Story.
So
Jenna, what do you think?
So there is a part in the movie where they talk about, because Albin, the husband of Gabby, right, which is Mia. Okay, so Albin is an architect, and at one point he says that he is making an infinity pool for the owners, and I was like, oh, there's a little drop in, and I was kind of like, oh, well, that's
Yeah, did you
So here's
remember
the thing, though, is
they
that
said
red
that-
goop, is the red goop that they're dipped in, is that infinity pool? Is that what that
Infinity
is? Okay, that's what I thought.
well, yeah, because it's a pool that
It's infinity.
it
Yeah, that's what I thought.
definitely perpetuates human beings, you know. But I just thought it was interesting that the guy Albin is an architect and he's designing infinity pools for the resorts. And so I was like, oh, is he designing these cloning things for the resort, like, or is he actually designing like an actual infinity pool?
An
Like,
actual infinity pool. Yeah. Again, with the ambiguity, like everything is very ambiguous, and like that's one of the best things about infinity pool is that it is like open to so many different routes of thought, and so, like I'm sure like every person who, you know, so you could get a whole bunch of people together and have a great conversation about what they thought it was, or what, you know, what it means to them, like, and just like, but you know what, the thing that got me the most was like obviously just how far and sick people can get if they're given that route. You know what I mean? It's like if you're given like total free range, like the thing that scares me about these kind of films is that they're very like, you know, they can happen, they could happen. You know, it's like The Purge. I'm like, The Purge, when I first watched that, the very first Purge, I was like, fuck, that could really happen.
yeah, that's like me with Black
See
Mirror.
that
Whenever I
happening.
watch Black Mirror, I'm like, oh crap.
Yeah, and Black Mirror is happening. I mean, the fact that they had the AI episode at the same time as the writer's strike dealing with AI in the contract, that was a little too close. I mean, I love Charlie Booker, and he is a genius.
I swear for years I've said he is prophetic in some ways, or he is just so tied in to what is going on in the world and everything that because he's done it more than once. He's done it since the beginning of Black Mirror. He'll put something out, and then literally like 6 months to a year later,
the
like,
robot bees. Let me tell you,
here we are now. Like, and
I was covering robotics for CNET when I was writing for CNET.com, was CBS thing, and robot bees were a thing that were happening right during that robot bees episode of Black Mirror, that the robots, that these little tiny bees take over because all our bees are dying.
Yeah.
That's happening right now because the biggest thing is whoever controls the bees controls the food supply of the country. Yeah. And so right now, Walmart, believe it or not, has the best tech for that. So if they wanted to be in charge of bees, that's where we're getting our food from now on, is Walmart. This isn't happening soon, but it's one of those things where I'm like, holy shit. And between Black Mirror and The Simpsons prophesizing.
I know.
I'm like, so many things that come
you saying this about Walmart makes me feel like, okay, well, that's another inch towards idiocracy. Like, here we go. We're going. Like,
but The Simpsons predicted Trump as our president like ages ago, and I was just like, oh God, someone needs to shoot all the Simpsons writers, or at least put them away somewhere where they don't do anything more horrific. Like, they just need to prophesize positive things from now on, because even the stuff for a joke is happening. And I mean, and again, that's just human nature too. We think of the most absurd thing ever for comedy, and then when it happens, we get freaked out because it happened. That's just human nature. But Black Mirror, I do think they have some sort of like prophetic nature of tech, because what's happened there, and there's some stuff that they prophesize that I don't think will ever happen, but I do kind of like the idea of, instead of prisons, instead of people who have committed violent crimes over and over and over and over, and rehabilitation's not an answer, and the prisons are overcrowded, we take care of their brains and make them think they're somewhere they're not. That's a thing that people are kind of investigating right now, because we only have so many places to put people. But again, what's the difference between science for the good of humanity and the science for the worst of humanity? We can't control that, because science is just going to develop how it develops. But when I watch Black Mirror every new season, I'm like, okay, is this what's going to come true? What episode of this one season are we going to be talking about in 5 years?
I get icky. Like, I feel icky. Like, both me and my housemate watched the recent one season, and we finished it, and we were both
Which
like,
one were you most icked out by? Which episode? Do you remember? Just out of curiosity,
the one with I love him, Domhnall Gleeson from Ex Machina. where he is the husband of and he dies, and a friend of the wife suggests that there's this program where you can call your dead partner, and it's like a service where they, they talk
so
to
it's
you.
AI. It's AI. It's
Yeah.
an AI thing.
And then she starts to like build this kind of relationship with the AI voice of her dead husband, right? And then the next level is you order
a robot.
A robot type thing that materializes from goo, basically. And that one really icked me out. Like when she she buys it, and then the husband and then there's this whole dynamic between her and the husband, and just there's all these ethical things, and just at the beginning she's all about it, and then halfway through she's not about it anymore. She's
she has a kid too, right? And the kid's only allowed to see the fake dad once a year or something like that, or for Christmas. Yeah.
And then so in the beginning, Jenna, it's the father is always there, and then eventually she cuts it off to where it's once a year she brings him out for an event.
Emotionally
it's really
hard.
creepy. It's really creepy.
But I will tell you right now, there is an AI death service that's being created right now. So if you have a voice of your, if you have a voicemail message from someone from your family that recently died, you give it to this company and they will AI it. And so that's actually happening. That's I mean, here's the thing. It's AI is tricky because it's getting more and more advanced, but also how we use it's tricky. How we decide to use it in ethical and unethical ways is tricky. Whether it's about a company or being replaced on the job or replacing a loved one because they're gone in this. And I don't know if that would help with grief or make it harder to let go when you have that.
That's what that episode talks about essentially. Is this helping, or is it a hindrance? And it starts by helping and then turns into making something really worse.
Yeah, of course. That's why horror and science fiction, when you mold them together, it can be really hard to watch sometimes. I mean, yes, it's entertaining. For me, I sometimes want it to be so advanced, I know it's not going to happen in my lifetime, so I don't have to worry about it. But when I see something that's close to what we're almost at, that's really scary because you don't know how it's going to be perceived. You don't know how it's going to change society or change you as a person, or change your nieces and nephews or children or grandchildren. It's really frightening too, because tech has advanced so much in my lifetime that I just don't even know once I'm gone how far and how fast it'll go. So
it's
I don't
crazy.
know. I mean, at least we have horror to kind of put us in check a little bit. To remind us,
that's what I love. That is one of the things I love about the horror genre, is that they're not. Horror isn't afraid to address really uncomfortable questions, and I love that about horror, is that you can take it in so many different ways. You can do so many things with horror. That's what I love about it. But I'll answer this question.
I do think that this Black Mirror season that just came out, I feel like he kind of the other ones, he was so prophetic kind of, and so everything was so whoa, and all the previous ones. And then this one just felt more like a horror series to me. It did.
It felt like
a werewolf and the demon type thing. And
it was like Tales from the Crypt a little bit.
It really
right?
felt like that's why the Joan is Awful one with what's her name? I love her so much. Annie.
Yeah, the serial killer one was great. I mean, I did feel like Tales of the Crypt, or Creep Show, or Tales from the Dark Side or something. It felt like I love those kind of anthologies, and I think they're trying to make those come back. Yeah, so I think those were good, but
I felt like he was like he's like, reality is too crazy right now. If we go that route with this season, we're gonna freak the entire population out. I need to do something that's a little bit more
And honestly, last season, I think that freaked a lot of gamers out because of that one episode of the virtual reality gamers.
That virtual reality one was fucking mind bending. I was like, what is going on? I'm like, so are they in love with each other?
I mean, it was interesting, right? Because I am a firm believer that sexuality is fluid, and you just need an avatar to really prove that scenario. But
it continued. It was such an interesting thing. And to bring it, I guess, full circle back again, is that's one of the things that I said about Cronenberg, about Brandon, is that he has this way of using horror and sci-fi and talking about shit that is like, you know, talking about AI, talking about cloning, talking about all of the genetics, talking about all these weird things. Like, you know, Ahmed is asked about
underlying social like connotations and like perspectives, and I love that.
Yeah, well, like just in terms of like Cronenberg's other movies that we.
Oh yeah, someone Ahmed wants to know how we're going to rank those.
So
how are we going to rank
I
them?
would say so. Like I said, Cronenberg doesn't have a huge list of full feature films. I haven't seen Possessor, so I can't say anything on that.
It's pretty good.
But
it's good.
Antiviral for me.
And we're just talking about Brandon, right? We're not talking about his dad.
Brandon, yeah. And but with
I haven't seen Antiviral, so I have to.
So Antiviral takes it to another level. So it's about obsession, and that with celebrities. So what it does is like you're so obsessed with a celebrity. So say, you know, this particular celebrity has herpes. You want to get her herpes. So they take diseases from celebrities and their flu.
Give them to you.
Yeah, and you pay for it and they give them to you. So like that's essentially what it is. So this girl has
face when you're explaining this is priceless.
Yeah, Jenna's losing it.
Haven't you ever thought about this, Jenna?
But it's a real.
That is disturbing.
It is, and it's really terrifying.
It's kind of like based on the bug chaser theory, right? Of like the people who like chase like. But I read about that
like
many years
they're
ago.
so obsessed, and it's like how they can be closer to that person. So and the you would love the dialogue, Jenna. The dialogue.
I may watch it tonight. Actually,
we should watch it.
The dialogue when they're discussing like what the person wants to buy today. So the person comes in and they've got a specific. There's different agencies with different celebrities. So whatever celebrity you like, you go to that agency, and then you get taken in, you have an interview, and the person is like, shows you a video, and it's like, oh, isn't she gorgeous? I can understand why you have this affinity to her, blah, blah, blah. Whole bunch of like mental, like, you would love it. The dialogue that they use. Pardon?
Don't give it away. I want to watch it. I don't want to.
I just want to watch it.
I'm just saying the dialogue is amazing. But yeah, essentially,
that's a future film we should definitely discuss. That's
some form of disease. Yeah. And they also create cells, and you can buy steak, for example, that is infused with the cell of whatever celebrity you like. So yeah, it's fucking it's
that's like commodification of human beings on a whole other like level. Like,
yeah. I strongly suggest you check it out because it is deeply
my brain tonight.
Yeah,
you're gonna have the weirdest dreams. You're gonna have
taking fanaticism to a whole other level.
Yeah, that's
and also just the idea of it. I was like, my mind was like, how did you think of this, you loon? Like, you had like this dream or something.
You know what? There is no original thought. So
no, I mean,
one person, I believe this. If one person thought one thing, if one person thought one thing, then there's probably a zillion other people that thought it as well. So it's not like one person came up with this creative idea. It's just someone tapped into it faster to make a movie or a book or a comic or a game or whatever. And that's scary to think about that level.
I can't talk about Possessor, but maybe you guys can talk to Possessor because
it's streaming right now. It's really good. So I
don't remember as much about it. I think because it just didn't strike. I remember liking it and thinking it was like decent, but it didn't like impact me as much as like Infinity Pool. Like
it was more sci-fi for me than horror.
Like this is, I think, Infinity Pool's the third full feature film from Brandon. So, I think.
Know what he's doing next? Is there any news on the next one?
I don't think so. I haven't seen anything about what. I don't think on the radar.
I mean, and I say this at the end of every video we do together as a show, that we are so lucky to have so much great horror coming out right now. And it's every year, it just keeps getting better and more diverse and more interesting and more representation of different voices and different ideas and creepy stuff I would have never thought of that now will haunt me till the end of days. So I feel like we're lucky to live in a world where we can also find stuff from other countries and from other, cultures. But also it's just this right here. This like being able to chat with my ladies about weird ass horror is my favorite thing ever.
I know. I'm just like, blah, 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 blah. There's so much craziness and like, Yeah, I
Always.
mean, that's why I love the horror genre, because the horror genre is so vast and wide, and it taps in again, like, to sci-fi and other areas, and I just like, I love it. And I think someone mentioned it's almost like exposure therapy, and I was gonna say
It
it
is,
totally
it is.
it totally is, because and for me it's like going into another world. Like I love it because it's disconnecting from this world and going into a completely other. You can't think about how anxious or what shit's going on with you today when you're crapping yourself, like watching something, like, you know what I mean? And you're like, all you're fixated on is that moment. And that's what I love about horror, is that like you can, for me, it's relaxing almost. Whereas I know for a lot of people, horror is terrifying. I have a lot of friends who can't watch horror at all.
I
Yeah.
have friends who
For
can't
me,
watch it
it's
at all.
actually,
Me too.
yeah.
Me too. I mean, it's
And
also like it taps into your own fears. So there's some people that find that cathartic, and some people find that horrifying because they don't want to think about that stuff. And like I have my limits. Like the crazier, the more unrealistic, the monstery, the more creaturey I love, because I know it's not going to happen tomorrow. But then the stuff that could happen tomorrow, I still watch it, still appreciate it. But it dives deeper into my fear zone, because I'm like, oh God, this could happen. This might be a thing that I would have
yeah,
to. But also as women, I think because we're constantly on alert for ourselves for survival mode in general, horror is almost a cathartic final girl situation too, where we're like, oh, even the worst thing, we can get through this. We'll survive. We'll be stronger. We'll be better. Like it's almost like a pep talk sometimes, especially
yeah.
when it's a
Or
final
look
girl
what this,
movie.
look at, you know, or like, look what this chick is going through, man.
Yeah.
She's carrying it. Like,
I mean,
don't
I'll tell you,
know.
watching all the Alien movies back to back to back to back, I'm like, yeah, Ripley's been through it, but man,
Oh
she's a
yeah,
badass.
she's a badass. She's a badass from number one. I still,
Yeah.
the iconic scene of her in the white underwear standing there all ripped and like just
And
this
that
strong
was the
female woman.
1970s when there weren't any movies like this ever. And
And
also
all
a
fluffy, like,
female, an
girls.
unknown actress playing such a major lead role, but also it was I could talk like the Aliens are a love letter to me,
No,
to science
I
fiction, feminism. Freaking love that
I've
series.
never watched them. I've seen snippets of it when it's been on TV, like, you know, growing
Well,
up. And
Hulu has them
I've
all.
never sat down and actually watched them, so it's on my list too. I need to
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
watch
we should
all of them.
definitely. I feel like we should
I've
definitely
done
pick
the
it.
whole like, let's watch all of them in a. I'm a really big fan of binge watching a
Me
whole
too.
like a whole franchise of
Me
stuff.
too.
So I'll be like, all right, let's this
Well,
month.
on that
I wanna
note,
watch
and I don't know if Australia has the same lineup that we do here for Hulu, but every
we
single
don't have
person.
Hulu.
So here's the thing: every single thing, all the Saw movies, which I think we're up to 8, is on Hulu. All the Purge movies, which we're up to a series and up to 7, are on Hulu. All the Alien movies and Alien versus Predator is on.
Mhm.
So I feel like though in Australia there is something like Hulu. It's just
We
called
do
something
have
else.
it on different channels. So
Okay,
like
okay.
we've got all the Halloween,
But
all of
there's so much. I mean, I'm
the
still getting through the Saw movies because the new one just came out. So I'm like trying to work my way up, and I'm like, it's very hard to watch those movies in a binge
I've heard,
fashion. It's like,
I've heard the new Saw movie is causing people to vomit. That's the it's apparently it's as gross as Terrifier 2.
it's torture
Cool.
porn. It is torture porn on some level, but on another level, the whole backstory of why the
Well,
the plot
for
of this
me,
one's very
like,
good. Yeah, so we'll
Saw
see. We'll
1
see.
Saw 1 is a phenomenal horror movie. I saw it at the
Yeah.
cinemas,
I
and
saw it at the theater
it's
too.
by two Australian boys from Melbourne.
I believe one of them is
And
James Wan, who went on to do many, 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 many movies we love,
all
like
the
Conjuring.
Nun, the bloody all of that, all of those movies.
By the way,
What is-
I met
what
James
is-
once. I met
all-
James once at a press release. It's like I think it was the Aquaman press screening, and I went up to him and I bogarted that guy forever because I was like, okay, first of all, thank you for everything you've done. Also, here's all the horror movies I've loved that you've done. Also, here's all the movies I wish you would do, because I was like, please do a kaiju movie, please do Godzilla, please do something, because your take on everything, I want it in everything. So if James, if you ever meet me again, I'm sorry. But also, it was such a fan moment for me as a horror fan, because I'm like, you had a different vision and now everyone's trying to copy it, which shows how talented you are when everyone else is trying to like jump on the James Wan, bandwagon. But he is one of those creators too that always sees something interesting, but also sees humor in it and sees how he can connect universes in a way that I would never have thought. And also he made scary dolls cool again. So thank you, James.
Yes, he did. Yes, Annabelle. Yeah, it's amazing. But yeah, Saw 1 still stands out to me when I saw it at the cinema. Two guys in a room. Two guys in a room. That's it. That to me, that is
well, technically 3 guys in a room, but
yes, 3 guys, but I wasn't gonna let that away. But he's not talking. So
it's like a one-act play. It's almost like it felt like a play because it was just one room.
Here's a bathroom, 2 dudes in it.
Yeah.
And I was like transfixed. And it's the guy from Princess Bride, for crying out loud. And it's Lee Wayne or
Carrie Elwes.
The other amazing.
Oh my God, my childhood heartthrob.
Yeah, he's great in it. He's great in it.
He's so good in it as well.
And it's also a horror movie with morals, which I think is also interesting to think about when you're watching horror. There is a level of morality. There is a level of cause and effect. There is a level of consequences for your actions. And when you have horror film that really highlight those things, that's what takes it up a step, because then you're thinking about your own actions, your own views, your own things you've done wrong or maybe shouldn't have done, because there could have been consequences that are similar. And also valuing life in general. Like, you don't value life until it's almost taken away from you. And I love that level of horror of, hey, maybe appreciate shit instead of always wanting things and always hating everything and like being miserable. You could be stuck in a room handcuffed to a wall and being told that the only way you get out is with that saw. Then life seems great because you're not that person. And I think that's another reason I like horror so much, is it reminds me that even when things are really bad, they're not that bad.
That you're alive. That's the thing. It reminds you that you're alive and you're actually an active participant in your own life.
Yes.
And I think that's one of the reasons, like, so many people who are really obsessed and huge fans of horror, I think that's what they get. They get that sense. There's this sense, there's a sense of belonging because of the community, but there's also this huge, there's a catharsis. There's like, there's so many things that you can get out of it, and which is just why I love it so much. But it's scary. And then when you fuse horror and sci-fi and the futuristic possibilities together, like in this film, it is downright terrifying. Like, because it's like, okay, now we're looking at shit that could really possibly happen. And
that's why, like, the only movies that scared me growing up, I was never scared about anything. I grew up watching, like, because I had older siblings, so I grew up watching like Freddy Krueger when I was like 6. Like, it never like freaked me out. But the first movie that ever freaked me out was like one of those like Outbreak or Contagion movies, and I was like, oh my God, like,
Outbreak. When that movie came out, I was legit like, this is scary. And then I remember during COVID,
things like that could really happen. Like, and that's why the AI stuff freaks me out so much too, because like we are like on the precipice of all this stuff like actually happening. So like,
Outbreak happened and it was like, whoa. And then you had 28 days later, all that stuff. And then it was like, hey, guess what? 3 years of lockdown, bitches. And COVID.
No,
like,
by the way, when it happened, I was like, this, and I had friends, my sister's like, this is your worst fear. And I'm like, this is my absolute worst fear. Is an invisible like virus that is deadly, that like we don't know what it's gonna do to humans. Like that's like my whole like
yeah.
I will be in my bubble over here, please. Like, I will just be in my little bubble.
Meanwhile, the scariest thing the first horror film that scared the crap out of me as a kid wasn't any of that. I lived in Kansas, which is, landlocked, and I was afraid of Jaws. So Jaws was like my
Jaws
thing.
Was scary for so many people. It was terrifying.
I mean, I was like, I had a waterbed. I was a kid with a waterbed, and I thought for sure that Jaws would get me in the waterbed. Like, I was 6 at the time, like 6 or 7. So I was like, I think I'm going to die by a waterbed shark. I'll be the first death of a waterbed. I mean, that even predates not Nightmare Before Christmas. I'm sorry. The Freddy Krueger one with when was it 3 when Freddy Krueger's in the waterbed and he's like enticing the guy, pretending he's like a naked chick, and then
I think that was
it 1 or 2? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Waterbeds were
that's where the
Tommy
waterbed burst with its own blood.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
That's number 3.
Yeah.
I believe it's number 3.
Anything
There's
that was,
few waterbeds throughout that franchise.
which, by the way, that's still a thing on leases. The lease I signed for this place had no waterbeds. I'm like, do people still have those? Like, is that still a thing that people buy?
They are really
waterbeds?
uncomfortable. I remember an
They're
older
so
brother
bad for your back.
in high school, and we used to go and like lay on his waterbed when he wasn't home. And I'd be like, it just feels like it's going to burst at any.
Yeah, they get
moment.
moldy real quick too. So if you don't put the right chemicals in there, like a hot tub or a swimming pool, it's just like basically you're building a virus inside your bed. If you're not,
It's
that
such a
weird
weird thing, man. It's like such
weird.
My dad had one in the 80s. I remember.
That's what I was going to say. It's that weird 80s luxury, like
it's 80s luxury. Yeah.
It's really
it's fine. Maybe someone will make some more waterbed horror films. Maybe that's a genre we haven't tapped into enough.
Infinity pool, like they should do like a gel.
Infinity waterbed.
Like a gel, where you can kind of like, how they have memory foam pillows and stuff, but they like make the whole bed.
I think you just tapped into something. That's what infinity pool is. It's memory foam because of the memories that you get to see?
Oh.
We come to some dark conclusions.
Off topic.
So good. I didn't even, I'm like, just came out.
That was like a little epiphany there. Like you got it. Like, ooh.
Sometimes it hits. Sometimes I hope my clone is as smart as the next episode.
Before I forget to mention it, so in this movie, I'm going to go back to the artistic stuff real quick. So in this movie, before we wrap this up, because I don't want to forget, because then we're never going to talk about this movie again, probably.
No.
So there was there's at the beginning, the shots, there was some really cool. So a lot of horror movies use like what are called Dutch shots, which are like the off-kilter shots that are supposed to like have a sense of dread, like they're supposed to increase like the uneasiness of a person, right, psychologically. So this one was, I found the beginning of this one really interesting because it was like a Dutch, but it was like a moving like Dutch, and the shots that they were doing at the beginning were so amazing and beautiful. And there were a lot of these kind of like artistic-y nature shots and things like that throughout this movie. And one of them at one point, it's literally just a shot of the ocean, and the ocean, it's just a still shot because there was a lot of
infinity pool.
Yeah, there were a lot of like moving shots in this movie, but then there was also the point, like there was one shot where it was just the ocean, and that's all it was just the ocean rippling. And do you remember in malls they used to have those pictures that were like you had to like stare at them a certain way to see like
Magic Eye.
You'd see the picture.
I could never do those. I've never been able to do those. It's like it was a frustration of mine as a child, but because I would spend hours and I'm like, I can't.
You have to cross your eyes, and it's dangerous to do that too much.
Yeah, well, I didn't like it. I could never do it. But in this movie, when they had that shot, it reminded me so much of the magic eye thing, because in those ripples, I started to like almost see things, and I was like, wow, obviously it's probably some sort of like representation of some like underlying message of like, artistic representation of something. But I just wondered, because it's like I'm seeing things underneath the water that I'm not supposed to like kind of see, that aren't really there. And I was just interested in how those like shots kind of tied in with the whole, like, because there was a lot of like, it was a lot of gore and horror and like crazy stuff, and then it would stop and there would be like this peaceful thing of like the ocean, or there'd be this like beautiful
I feel like that was a theme, Jenna, like water is a like almost, it's a theme throughout the whole film. Like we begin on it, we end on it, yeah. The end, he's in front of the water and it's pouring rain, and then like you've got like at the beginning, like obviously the never-ending sea, which is like an infinity pool in itself.
Yep.
Like, and then you've got like all of these shots and like water. Yeah, I'm not sure what he's getting at with it.
I mean, maybe it's my background in religion, because I grew up in a very religious household, but I also got some baptism like references there, because the whole point of baptism is when you get baptized, you're cleansed, and also born again Christians, they do it in oceans, lakes, and ponds, not necessarily like when you're a baby, and they dunk you for a long time, and it's supposed to be cleansing. It's supposed to be a new you. And so that's kind of what I was getting from it, but also the rehabilitative nature of salt water is also supposed to be healing, and it's also supposed to be regenerative. And so I think there's a lot of things, and also water scrying could come up, because there is a level of people that would stare into the waves and they could prophesize things or see things, or you know what I mean? There's a level of
if you stare into most things.
Yeah, and that's kind of what it felt like for me on that shot where it was just I was like, oh, I'm seeing things in this, like, and I watched it. I actually watched it like 3 times, and I was like,
it's hypnotic. It's hypnotic and meditative. So a lot of people use water to meditate. Or
the sex scenes were like.
Mm-hmm.
Like the sex scenes and the orgy scenes, they were hypnotic.
Good. They were so good.
You were like, that's what I was like saying. I was almost like going like this.
When I was watching it for the first time and I knew we were going to be discussing this, I'm like, I can't wait to hear what Jenna says about this very long sex scene. Because also part of it was funny. Because for me, it was funny at the beginning because you see just, you know, Skarsgård and Mia going at it. But then at some point you see the old guy like hitting the legs and then jerking off while he's like batting Alex's legs. And it's such a funny Benny Hill moment where I'm like, wait, is this supposed to happen? It's kind of like one of those things when you picture or envision an orgy, you don't envision everyone in it. You envision like certain people that maybe you're attracted to. And I was not attracted to that character. So when I saw him in there as the third person represented before you see everything, I actually laughed out loud because the way he was sexually gratifying himself seems so funny and absurd and not a typical, and I'm not kink shaming. It was just one of those things where I'm like, wait, what is he doing? And I had to freeze frame it because I was like, well, who is he? Do you have Alex's foot?
Yeah.
Is that?
I think that was also like a really good.
But it was interesting also because then you have the math.
It was like a sex fever dream, and I just liked it. It was just like a haze, if you will. It was a haze of like sexuality and like just it was. I don't know. I just really
I loved it.
Again, like
I tend to since my retirement and stuff from adult and even when I was in adult producing and directing, I couldn't watch the films anymore. It just didn't, you know. And I was a big fan of adult films before I got in the industry. It's one of the reasons I got in is because I love them so much. But once I got in them, I know everybody, I know the process, I direct it. It just stopped doing it for me. And so, but now when I see like mainstream films that have like really well shot or really artistic sex scenes and them, I'm just like, I love it. Like,
right.
I love seeing mainstream also push the boundaries on like, you know, like showing like, there was drops of semen, like yes, like that's awesome.
I feel like that's where horror and stuff
which
is
probably why it's my favorite. Is because it has all the sex and the nudity.
Yeah.
Well, horror is always known to have sex. That's why I think that's also why it's so provocative to teenagers, like when you're starting to get into horror films, because it's one of the only genres where you can actually see full on.
Tuesday, there's always titties out in a horror movie for no apparent reason.
No reason, just
walking in the room.
I will say that at some point, I hope we review the horror film Chopping Mall just so Jenna can review the sex scene in Chopping Mall because it's an 80s.
I've seen Chopping Mall quite a few times.
Oh my God.
I've never heard of this one.
So it's called Chopping Mall, and it's about robots that go crazy. It's about security robots that are given the mall to rope, to secure, but they go crazy and they start killing people. But it's teenagers, and by teenagers, I mean teenagers in the 80s who look like they're in their 30s, right?
Yeah.
So teenagers that have decided to stay at the mall after closing so they can goof around and have sex in the mattress store and drink alcohol and whatever, and they're doing 80s sexual hijinks. And then these robots start killing them off one by one because they're considered invaders because the robots don't realize that they're just innocent teenagers doing teenager shit. But there's a sex scene in there that's hilarious to me, but I'm always intrigued by what other people think of sex scenes because for me, I'm not prudish about that stuff and I never have been, but also it's an 80s sex scene, kind of like Societies. The Society is also a movie I hope we review at some point.
Because either.
Society's great because it's an 80s horror film about the rich people that basically are using aliens to live forever and get power and be rich, but they have the longest orgy scene. That is the weirdest orgy scene because it's like some guy turns himself into an actual butthole because people kept calling him an asshole and then he becomes an asshole. And then it's a joke that he's an asshole. And then it's happening during the orgy. And you're like, what is happening? And it's such a weird movie. It's called The Society. Joe Bob Briggs had it on the last drive-in. It's a classic because it's from the 80s, but it's also a movie where you're like, where is this going? Because you think at the beginning it's like a Revenge of the Nerds sex romp kind of movie. Oh no, it goes to places where I'm like, I'm still thinking about it. And I saw it when it came out.
Well,
And I was like,
I view
what?
the sex scenes, I view them as like from obviously from a director perspective and from a performer perspective. But like, I don't know, I really like this one because it had all like the artistic colors and all that stuff. And it was also just kind of like this mashup of different visual imagery. But it started out, like you were saying, it started out just like the two of them, and then it turned into like this thing, and then they have the masks on in it, and then it turned like super freaky. Like and like,
yeah.
and
And I have the dot problem. What is that called? You would know. It's I have
or whatever.
yes, and
Yeah.
one of those
see it.
masks. One of the masks has and I had to look away.
Oh, the dots. Oh,
I
yeah.
It's the whole dot thing. Yeah,
I can't do holes. Yeah, I've never been able to do it. As soon as it gets too many, I feel sick.
that's so
Wow.
fascinating. Somebody's
I mean,
mentioning Barbarian in the chat, and I did like Barbarian.
I liked
Yes,
Barbarian
they
too.
make
Though I
Barbarian
will say
too,
I felt sad for it a little bit, but also I'm so stupid. I didn't realize it was called. Wait. I'm so stupid. I didn't realize it was called Barbarian because it takes place on Barbary Street. So I was like, oh,
I didn't.
They're called
Yeah.
I thought it was like Barbarian, like warriors. I didn't realize it was Barbarian because
Yeah.
they're on Barbary Street, and I was like, oh, that's okay. But it's such a great movie too because you're like, you don't know where it's gonna go, and also. There's some moments where it's like justified killings, I think.
Yeah.
Justin Long's character,
And
I wasn't too bad for him.
No, he's an ass. He like towards the end, he's a real ass. He's like,
But also every Airbnb I've ever been at, I've had that fear that I'm going to an Airbnb where someone else is in it or some killing has been done in the basement.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I had a minute where I was like, I like they brought up Barbarian, and I was like, oh yeah, I liked it. But then I was like, wait a minute, what was the whole premise of that one? And then I had to look it up real quick, and it all came back to me, and I was like, oh yeah, that was the Airbnb and like the guy and the.
Which is also now a new horror genre of Airbnbs gone bad. That is actually, there are many movies out there right now with that premise. So I love that too.
I've got to say, with Barbarian, I was like, the true crime person in me wanted more from like the killer. I wanted to see more of the stuff that they cut out. Like, you know, when he's like in the thing, like buying stuff and when he like is, you know, when the guy finds him and he just kills himself, I was really disappointed. I was like, I wanted some serial killer.
Yeah, never say never. We may get a prequel. Like, we could get a prequel. I mean, that's the thing with these movies too. It's not necessarily one note. Yeah, it could end up being something else for sure. Like, because but I
he obviously, you know, he's taken all these women and he's also had babies with some of them. So like,
oh no, it's just the one that he
they allude to the fact that one lady.
I think it was just one woman that he got and then just kept having babies with the babies. That's why I think that that's why I think that's what the story was.
They're all in there still.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, it's like that's what is horrifying too. It's not just one. It's kind of like the, you know, not sister wives, but it's like a captivity thing where then the child is now part of that system. But also
horrible serial killers from Europe. You know, that the main guy, I've forgotten his name, that like had a daughter and locked her up and then like had babies with her.
Oh yeah, no.
And like, it was like 12 of them or some shit in there, like under the house. And the wife.
I mean, I will admit, I like to watch horror movies because they're sometimes less horrifying than true crime. And I do a palate cleanser of horror sometimes just so because I watch a lot of true crime, but I have to be careful not to watch too much because then I think everyone in my apartment complex is a serial killer. Like, or I can't, you know what I mean? You start to get a little, your worldview gets a little darker if you watch too much true crime. Yeah.
Well, I just finished watching season 1 of the serial killer you were just talking about, the LGBT New York one.
Oh yeah, smiley face.
It's really good. It's really good.
Yeah, there's smiley face. There's, I mean, and another part of me too doesn't want to glamify, glorify, or promote the idolization of certain celebrity serial killers who are serial killers that have so many movies, so many TV shows about them because they are kind of like the pinnacle of what everybody knows. I'm more fascinated with like the stuff that you don't know. I shouldn't say fascinated. I'm also passionate also about learning more about crimes against cultures we never hear about. So like right now I'm doing a deep dive in Indigenous women who have gone missing, and why aren't people like more passionate about them instead of just the Gabbies of the world, you know, just the white
that's
women.
actually a topic. That's a topic we've covered in a couple of my classes actually. And
yeah. So I've actually, since what I'm trying to do now, and this is not a PSA for anything, I'm not promoting anything, but because I've written so much horror and I've written so many murder mystery games, and I've done, when I worked for Hunt a Killer, we did have a time when I worked there where a percentage of all of our games went to the Cold Case Foundation. So at least we were doing something nice and not just promoting, fun murder mystery game. And so we're doing that. But since Hunt a Killer, you know, got rid of a lot of us and I don't work there anymore, but my games are still coming out, but I'm not working there anymore. Now I'm trying to refocus my energy on trying to figure out a way to like use whatever expertise I have or promotional skills or PR, publicity, social media strategy skills I have to figure out a way to help with Cold Case Foundation and also missing Indigenous people's stuff, because even though I'm, you know, half Italian and Welsh, I am not Indigenous. I still think that the more people that can like bring that out into the open and talk about it, the more hopefully there'll be eyeballs on those cases. But also it's such a horrifying thing to live in a time where serial killers are kind of the celebrities, and the victims that are still out there, and victims have nothing to do with serial killers, are still missing. To me, that's where it falls short. And in the true crime community, yes, it's entertaining to watch all those shows, listen to podcasts. But now a part of me is like, okay, I've done that. Now I feel like an obligation that I need to do something positive, or else I'm just part of the problem. So now I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do I do this as a writer? How do I do this as a journalist, an activist, whatever? But on that note, I'm also trying to shy away from serial killer horror, because now I feel like it's too glamorization-y. Now I like stuff that's like this, where I don't think this is like glamorizing horror. It's just, you know, a different way to think about cloning. But I would rather focus on that kind of stuff than, you know, it's another serial killer trope, because I feel like it's almost like the being famous thing. A lot of people of different younger generations want to be. I mean, everyone wanted to be famous at some point, but maybe for the right reasons. Not for being a serial killer, not for being like someone who does something violent. Like maybe something else.
I'm interested in the psychology behind it. Like I always want to know like how they grew up, what happened to them, like you know, relationships with people,
which
like,
is important. Which is important because that's how rehabilitation happens. But also, I think as women, I know as a woman myself, I was drawn to true crime because I thought the more I know, the better I can protect myself. Or the more I know, the more I can see signs, warning signs, or maybe don't do this if I'm going to use Tinder, you know, have some safety zone situation. Like think smarter as a woman, because I'm watching how all these women are killed. But the sad thing is, the more you watch, the more you realize they didn't do anything wrong. In fact, they didn't do anything different. They were just women being women outside.
They were existing. They were just existing, man.
And that's the sad thing, because every true crime thing, it always starts with, well, why me? Why did they go after her? And it's like, because she exists. And nothing to do
there's no other reason. It's purely you existed and you were in the wrong place at the right time, or whatever it may be.
And that's the horror right there, because that's the reality of it. But at least the more we watch these things, the more maybe we can like learn how to be survivors, final girls, whatever, but also learn warning signs and also see things for how they are real, you know, see warning signs, because a lot of people just look the other way or don't think anything bad's happening, but deep down they probably know something bad's happening. So I don't know, horror for me, it's like it's a mix of entertainment, but also how do I survive? How do I make sure I'm a final girl?
It's like with every
Bonnie, you will survive. If anyone's gonna survive, like
I'm telling you,
killer or like something, it's gonna be you, because you know all the tricks.
I had a conversation like that with one of my friends, and she's like, "I never thought of you as a victim. I always thought of you turning into a killer." And I'm like, I don't think I could do that, because I have too much empathy. So I would feel guilty the minute I did it. So I don't think I could. And also, I can't keep a secret. So I would tell someone that would then tell on me. So I'm sure I wouldn't last long. Also, I always have glitter on me, so I would leave a trail of glitter that it just would not work out in my favor. But I do appreciate you thinking I will survive. I think if anything happens to me, I'll just like probably get possessed and forget I got possessed, and then something will happen.
That's
but
all right, because I'm a natural mama, so I go into extreme protection mode when something
Yeah.
goes wrong, and I've had a lot of scary situations in my life, and
you're Ripley. You basically turn into Ripley.
I
You
just go
protect everyone.
boom, and I'm in there. You know what I mean? I'm like, let's do this, and I grab everyone. I'm like that person.
Okay, I'm seeking you out when the apocalypse happens. I'm taking a one-way ticket to where you live.
Me and my housemate sometimes we'll watch horror and we'll just be sitting there the whole time going, well, you mucked up there, you did this.
Yeah.
And we're like the whole way through. And I'm like just coming up with all these scenarios and going, well, what the and sometimes that's the joy of it, just yelling at the screen. I love watching I love watching like just a basic, sometimes I just want to watch a basic chase kill type horror, and all I want to do is watch it and go, you idiot.
Well, I did that for Barbarian. For Barbarian, I kept going, don't go down there. Don't go down there. Don't go in the basement.
You're gonna go down there.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad that my walls are pretty like soundproof, because man, my neighbors, like I watch these movies and I'll literally be like in the living room and my sister will be here too, or some friend will be here, or somebody will be here, and I'll be like jumping up and like yelling at the TV, like, come on. Somebody in the chat says, please discuss horror movies where women protagonists rule. We do a lot of like women focused kind of stuff. And then someone else mentioned something about Jennifer's Body, and we covered Jennifer's Body in another episode.
Yes.
So be sure to check that one out.
Yeah, previous episode. Check it out, because we talk about that one a lot. That's one of our favorites for sure. But Jenna, what kind of, we talked about, Renee and I talked about what we would be like. What's your horror film role if you had one? Like, what would be are you a protagonist, and if you want to be the killer, no judgment. I'm not a killer.
I'm like the goofy, sweet kind of person who just ends up accidentally surviving or something.
I love that. I love that so much.
I'm just like the like naive, like helper kind of person.
Yes. I can see you as that. I can totally see you as that.
Sidekick. You're the sidekick that saves everyone.
Yes, that's me.
There's a new.
And I do all the grunt work, Jenna. I'm like doing all the pushing and killing. You're my pretty face with the consoling soul.
The actress that played the Sabrina Witch, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, and also Mad Men.
I love so much, and I'm so mad they canceled it.
So she's in a new horror film.
It's over or something. There's
Sabrina Teenage Witches. But I think it's Amazon Prime Video has a new movie that's coming out where it's a Blumhouse movie. It's a Blumhouse movie, and it's basically her in modern time, but she time travels by accident to the 80s to go back to a true crime moment, because her mom's roommates had been murdered at like a vacation spot when she was a teen. So she goes back to when her mom's a teen in the 80s, and she's trapped it's like Back to the Future horror. So she's basically herself, but like trying to solve an 80s murder thing, but it's also 80s horror tropey. So it's got that, like, it's kind of like the movie Final Girl, which is also like that. Final Girl's like that as well. But it's a movie that I'm looking forward to watching. But I'll watch it, and then I'll let you know on Instagram if maybe that could be something
it's on
that
my list. I was gonna watch it probably this week. So
good. So I'm just putting that out there if you like 80s, like, dark comedy horror. Because Blumhouse, let me tell you something. Blumhouse is like pumping out horror films like crazy. And some of them are good.
And A24, we're getting such
and
great
Neon. Between Neon, A24, that and Lionsgate. I mean, there's a lot of good horror coming out, but Blumhouse is like, I feel like
I love that we're in an era where people are investing in horror and they're making horror, and it's actually being recognized as its own thing. Like,
and the new VHS anthology just came out this week too. I think it's or something. Yeah.
I don't know. What's it called?
Sorry. By the way, we need to make a horror film. I don't know if I stress this enough. But we, of the three of us, need to get together and make a horror film, because I feel like our collective knowledge and experience, we could come out with something pretty awesome. So no pressure, but I'm expecting.
I've been thinking about this a lot. I have some whacked out recurring dreams, and I've like there's a few of them that are very like crazy horror storylines, and I'm like,
awesome.
That would really mind melt. There's no real, there's like really no explanation. Sometimes I love a horror where there is no explanation. It's just this is horror is horror. You know what I mean? Sometimes I want to watch that.
Sorry. I'm very silly tonight. I'm sorry, everyone.
No, I thought the same thing. I was in the same accent. You're fine.
Yeah, you guys are fine. I love it. I just love it because I can't recognize my own accent myself.
Oh, it's not yours. No.
It was
We were doing 1930s
noir,
like Betty Davis. Betty Davis, yes.
Lately we've been watching true crime, and I've been getting human. Like Americans sometimes, some parts of America say human really weird. Instead of
what is
human.
that? What word
Instead
is
of saying human?
Oh.
It's like human, and then they say human, like really quick, and I'm like, what accent is this? It's like weird parts of America. Yeah, it's insane. But
anyway, thank you for letting us review this movie, because it will stick with me forever. I feel like I need to watch it another time now that we've discussed it, because I know I'll see even more crazy stuff that I didn't see before. But I'm glad we picked this, because this would not have been a first choice for me, but because we picked it, I really enjoyed doing a deep dive on it. So thank you for that.
And our next one's going to be so good. I'm very excited for the next one we're doing.
Yes.
Which might be next week. It might be a little later. We don't know yet.
Yep.
We'll talk about it offline, but we'll make it happen.
Yeah. It's going to be great. And I just watched that movie the other day. I know me and you, I think Renee, were talking about the No One Will Save You movie. Which
yes.
I love it. I love it. All of you watching right now, go and watch it. It's interesting because there's hardly any dialogue, and I loved it.
I loved it.
Really, really well done.
So well done. And also just so beautifully shot. So beautifully
just gorgeous.
shot.
Just gorgeous. And
you walk into that film and we'll add it to our list.
It's
a huge list. Go into it.
We could do one of these every day, and we probably would
I know.
not.
Yes.
I know. This is why I love you guys. That's why I love doing it. It's the highlight of my month.
I know my cheeks hurt again from sweating.
I know, mine do too.
Oh, no, I need a cheek.
I get but okay. Does anyone have any last final thoughts that they want to share?
I think I covered everything on my little
notes pad.
I love it. You think?
I'm just going to reiterate the same thing. It's a beautifully shot movie. It's incredibly clever, and the performances in it are amazing. It's it's so thought provoking, and I love the way that Brandon does this with his films, and just is able to kind of poke the bear, as they say, and just make people think a little bit more about the real horror within our own within our lives, that what can happen, and or these crazy scenarios that we've been talking about, does AI and clones and souls and all of these things that open up cans of worms everywhere. And to me that's a great film. A great film is something that makes you question and think and and all of that. So yeah, this film for me was really great, and I walked into it totally blind, and really, really enjoyed it, and thought it was well worth it. So
same. I was literally just looking for something to watch on Hulu one night, and I was like, Infinity Pool, what's that? I was like, Mia Goth, and I was like, oh, and then it just kind of, I was like, wow, this is really great.
And the pace is great, and the transitioning from genres, and the snaps between the characters, everything is just so incredibly well done. So.
I loved it too. And thanks for reminding me it exists, because I'm not technically a big body horror fan of that.
No, me neither, which is why I went into this with a big ooh.
And I really, I was pleasantly surprised, but also it provoked a lot of interesting thoughts in my brain that I did not think I was going to think about when I watched this movie. And again, this is the second time I watched it, And I know the third time I watch it, I'm going to get a different layer. And I think that is a testament of how good of a horror film is.
Yes.
If you get something new every time you watch it, that means it's well written, well acted, well shot. The music, the sound design, the everything, the color palette, everything clicked with that movie. And I really enjoyed it. And granted, I will admit, I will watch anything with Mia Goth. It could be a Doritos commercial. I'll watch it over and over. Well, like, she was great.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I've got a little crush on her. So.
I mean, she's such a talented actress, and I'm so excited to see what
she's coming out with such amazing stuff. And I think, you know, and I'm really keen to watch her in.
Let's watch Maxine.
Yes, Maxine. I'm dying for Maxine to come out.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited to watch that as well.
All I know is that all of these movies that I'm watching, like it's with y'all and everything, it's really inspiring me to get back into acting myself. Like it really is. I'm like, man, I want to be in these scary movies. I want to be.
You would be so good in them. And to be honest, between the three of us,
what?
But also between the three of us, I know so many horror film directors and screenwriters. I'm sure Renee does too. I feel like this might be a thing where I have to help make this happen because I want to see you in a horror film.
I feel like we can get Jenna into a
not just us writing it
and making a lot of horror movies.
Well, I mean,
the beginning is the fastest
way. I mean, the fastest way to do this.
You've done one. We need to get you like a feature role, babe.
Yeah.
Yeah, or Renee and I could write it, Renee can direct it, and you could be the Mia Goth that we present to the world in our horror films. Because honestly, like, just from also talking to the Addams family, right? Because they're such great indie filmmakers.
And we will be, I will say that we will be having some of the Addams family members coming on, and we will be talking about the new film.
Yes.
Yes. That will be coming up in the months ahead, just as a heads up.
And they're going to be at the Telluride Film Festival again, right? Because that's when we talked to Toby last. She was at that festival. But they're a great family that does a lot of cool indie horror films. But they do such a unique take, but they do such a great job at it that it makes me. And again, horror film as like a genre. The horror film community is really good at supporting each other and inspiring each other.
Yeah.
So I feel like we will get you in a horror film, Jenna. Don't worry.
Well, I'm graduating with my degree in June, and I'm probably going to get a mainstream agent and start making more mainstream acting.
Well, I mean,
I miss mainstream acting, and I just miss acting in general and like creating films and things like that. Somebody also commented about. I just want to say this real quick before we end or whatever. I want to see Maxine. I really preferred X though, especially the Chelsea Wolfe soundtrack. X is also a movie that we have covered on here. We have not done Pearl, but we did do X. And yes, of course, Chelsea Wolfe is amazing. She's an online friend of mine, and I love her. She's so great. So yes, of course, I love that part about it. But if you do watch the episode, you will see that I had problems with the porn aspect of that, and I'm interested in seeing Maxine because I'm interested in seeing what sort of adult film stuff goes on in there. I agree. Can call out or back up, whichever one. But yes, check out our episode on X, and we discuss it.
And Jennifer's Body that people were asking about as well. We've already done that one.
Yes, and we did one of the Addams Family films as well, which was I love that film so much.
Hellbender is one of my favorite horror films to come out of indie horror for like a decade. So I love Hellbender. I will always love Hellbender. And that's also, folky witch horror, which is my preferred. That's like my retirement plan. That movie is like me being a witch in the woods. That's my retirement plan.
Maybe that's where I am in the scary movie. Maybe I'm like
You're in Superbad, right, Jenna?
Everyone, what?
You're in Superbad, correct?
I had a cameo in Superbad. I had a cameo in Crank 2 High Voltage. And I had a little part in the bonus material of Funny People with Aziz Ansari. And I had a small role in a horror movie called Raised by Wolves, where I played an escaped cult member. What else have I done? I've done two short kind of funny comedy clips with James Gunn. And I've done some music videos as well, but I want to do more. I want to do more stuff.
We're gonna make it happen.
I'm ready for it now. I stepped away from like my on-camera stuff a little bit, but I'm like embracing it now, and I'm ready to like get back. So I think let's make a movie. I was actually thinking about making like a horror movie with some other friends, some photographer friends of mine, and some writer friends of mine, and we should just like all get together and like do it. But you know what? They're guys though, so let's make it a female thing.
Let's make it.
Let's do a female one.
We
And
gotta-
also, Jenna,
we gotta
I mean,
stay in the
since Jenna and I
coven.
Jenna, since we're both in LA, let's do a meetup. Like Renee, you'll be there in spirit, or I'll have you on FaceTime.
Yes,
Yeah.
we will. And also, I'm planning a trip to Australia hopefully next year. So
Yay!
I've got too many friends there that I need to come visit, and you are one of them. So
Well, as soon as I'm back on track, LA is on my list of places to get back to.
Yay.
So.
yeah, we could do an episode with all three of us in the same place.
Yes,
Oh my
please.
God, in the same like thing. That would be
Yeah,
epic.
same room, like a live,
like in the actual same room.
yeah.
I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
I'm down with that. I'm so down with that.
Oh, I love you,
Yeah.
ladies, so much.
All right. Well, yes. We can do some shout outs. Like I said, stay tuned because our next episode is going to be a banger. And we will no doubt have another one not too far afterwards that we'll announce. We'll have a chat amongst ourselves on what we want to do next. And then also, I'll be looking at we'll be getting some of the Addams family to actually come on. So probably Toby and Lulu, if not Zelda as well. But yeah, and that will be awesome. And then I guess I've got Hereditary coming up, another podcast with Movie Night Extravaganza. So I'll be doing Hereditary. And then also coming soon, we'll have a drop episode with the Murder Alien Sex podcast. So that's a really weird one. So we're going to be talking true crime, cults, and also doing a porn review. So at the end,
saw that.
yes. So we're doing live Live in My Secrets, which is a Vivid alt film, which is a favorite of mine, which is directed by Kimberly Kane. And there's a scene.
I love her. She's so great.
Come back. Oh, yeah, dropping out. And there's a scene in there with Sasha Grey and Kimberly that we'll be reviewing at the end of the podcast. So we're doing a bit of an extra special. Usually they do reviews on silly porn films. So this is one of the first ones where they've actually done an actual big film and with big actresses, and so we're giving it a bit more airtime. So that will be fun. So keep tuned for that. Bonnie, Jenna.
I have a couple creative projects that I've been working on for years that are finally starting to come together. So keep an eye out for those. I will be posting them on my social media pages. I have a Twitter and Instagram, all of that stuff. There's a LinkedIn link at the top of all of my pages. So if you go to instagram.com/Jenna Haze, you can find all of my links there. It's on every one of my pages. And I'm not good at this anymore.
I'm sorry, but for the crowd's purpose, it's been a while.
It's been a while.
We had a reunion, so we're a little bit
it's hard
giddy
to
and
remember.
excited, and it's like a girl's sleepover.
It's also hard to remember what's coming up for. So I know. So I'm on Adam Green and Joe Lynch's horror film making podcast, The Movie Crypt. So that's coming up. I don't know when, but I did it. And I've been friends with Adam forever, and it's funny because I was in full ADHD mode. I don't know if you could tell, but I'm finally medicated, so I'm not talking as fast as I normally do, but on that podcast I do, and it's like an hour podcast, but I think it was like 5-hour discussion. So bless them for trying to edit that crap down. So we'll see if it sounds good. I'm apologizing in advance, but it was a really fun horror film discussion, and writer discussion. And then I think Disturbance in the Force, which is a Star Wars holiday special documentary that I'm in with great people like Seth Green, and I think Patton Oswalt's in it, and just a lot of great comedians, and Donny Osmond's in it, and a lot of people from the Star Wars holiday special, the infamous one that was shown in the 70s on TV once, but then never shown again because it's so crazy. That was a fun documentary, and I think that's starting to get some distribution. I'm seeing it on the festival route. And then I know the Felicitations book club I do with Felicia Day, we're covering some fun horror books and other stuff. We just had our show this week. So it's been a fun fun week for me to talk about stuff I love. So thank you. But that's kind of it. I'm working on some screenplays and some other stuff that's just to get stuff done and hopefully make the rounds. But in LA, it's a weird time to be a writer because the strike is done, but there's other strikes going on. Actor strike. My healthcare provider's on strike right now.
No.
Kaiser Permanente's on strike, so it's like, okay, I guess I hope I have enough Adderall to last me until the strike's done. But it's like, it's just a really weird time to be living in LA. When isn't it? But it's also me trying to figure out what I want to do next as a writer, and horror is always at the top of the list. So every time I'm like, okay, I need to write a horror film script, and I could stick Jenna in as the lead and have Renee work on it too, and then we can all like survive as final girls and make it in this industry. That's all I want to do. So that's my main focus. And so we'll do some fun stuff together. I'm gonna make this happen. I feel like that's a horror film script in a way, because then I'm like a little too confident and a little too like obsessed with this idea. So yeah, that could be the actual script, is me trying to write a script with put all of you in it.
I love it. Okay, I'm going to take another shot at this. So I have Instagram.com/Jenna Haze, Twitter or X.com/Jenna Haze. I just joined TikTok, but I only have like 200 followers, so please follow me. It's very abysmal. I only joined it because there's fakes on there, and I just want to have an account that's really me, just to have a presence there. Fleshlight.com/Jenna Haze for the naughty stuff. And there's also, of course, my spicy site if you want to go, which is an OF site. I'm sure y'all know what that is.
Yay!
Help support my grad school fund.
And I'm Bonnie Girl across the board on all the socials. So it's just Bonnie GRRL. And also if you just Google me, you can find me. I'm kind of been around for so long. You could probably find me on sites that don't exist anymore too. Like, I don't know, MySpace and Friendster and whatever. But but also
you find that out.
And also if you follow my TikTok, you're just going to see me slowly go insane during COVID, because all I did was try to do Ouija board videos and also creepy mini horror films with my vintage ventriloquist dolls.
Okay, I have to follow you now.
Which is probably why I don't have a lot of TikTok followers, but I was trying.
I don't have any. Very sad. I also just don't know what to post on there. Like I
just followed you.
I texted my friend Joanna and I was like, how do I do this? I don't know how to do it.
Everyone's figuring it out. That's why I think TikTok's so great, because there's no rules really. So everyone's just doing their
everyone's trying to figure out what they should post and how to post.
But I will tell you though,
weird, unique.
I love playing TikTok bingo in LA, where everywhere you can find someone TikToking. And I live in North Hollywood, right next to the Circus Liquors, which is in the movie Clueless. That's where she gets mugged, is that clown circus. And every single night I like walk past or drive past, someone's doing a TikTok reenacting that scene. And the last time I saw it happen were drag queens doing it. And it was the funniest thing ever. To watch them stage the Clueless mugging underneath the circus clown thing. But that clearly was a TikTok, because they had a TikTok dance and everything. So I would just say, just be yourself on TikTok. You're awesome, Jenna. Of course you're going to get a zillion followers, and you're just be
People
you.
love watching like even just like I've got so many friends that have like a gazillion followers, and all they do is talk.
Yeah. Or you can just figure it out. Or just go slowly insane like I do.
I'll figure it out. I saw that there were a bunch of fakes on there, and I was like, you know what?
There's only one.
That's the main reason I signed up originally. Every new platform, I always end up signing up to steal my name back.
Unfortunately, somebody has my name on TikTok, so I had to use the real Jenna Haze. Same with Facebook. Someone still has my name on Facebook, and unfortunately.
So see, this is proof that even now we're dealing with bad clones.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, that's the thing. Is like
there's one girl who uses Renee Ruin just for one thing, and she posts like modeling shots or something, and I'm like, please go away.
I don't care if anyone steals my identity. Just do something cool with it.
No, I care. I constantly am battling.
Well, no, that's your livelihood. That's like you. Like, if anyone wants to pretend to be me, it's like, why? Like, good luck. I don't know what you're going to get, free tacos or something out of the deal, but it's not going to be anything great. Like, it's
Bonnie.
I mean, I'm not being down on myself. It's just, think bigger. Like,
Yeah.
You're gonna do something, do it all out,
I know,
Really
right?
go with it.
But
That's what I
anyway,
mean.
I'm glad that we could talk. I'll follow you on TikTok, but I'm glad you ladies exist in my life so I can stay a little bit saner for a little bit longer.
Yes. And and keep an eye on our socials because we'll be dropping the new shows in there. And as I said, go back, check out what we've done already. X, Jennifer's Body, Hellbender, like
Men.
great films. So get in there and have a look. And and that's us for tonight. We've had a long, crazy, giddy even.
We did, but it was fun. It was so much fun. I always have the best time with y'all.
Yeah, thank you guys, and thanks for everyone tuning in.
Yeah,
and this will be available to view later. If you have, you didn't catch
it'll go up.
We'll be on YouTube later.
Yeah. Bye all.
Pageant wave. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Love ya.